Welcome everybody to day number 2 of the PUBG Mobile European Community Tournament with myself, Imperium, and the wonderful Zute. We had 4 sets of games yesterday and we kicked things off, and now we're about to get into another set of games. Firstly, Zute, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I was really excited for, day number 1, and now that we kind of got a taste of, how the games are going to go, I'm even more excited to see, what happens day number 2 and onwards.
Yeah, and the exciting thing is, of course, we talked about it yesterday, the evolution of how this tournament is going to go. You would have seen it in the graphic before we were on screen. 20 teams, or should I say, 20 teams divided into 5 groups of 4. There you go. I got my maths right. They're all representing their communities/countries. Each community has 2 teams. So it's about kind of inadvertently working together to try and basically get as many points as you can for your community.
Yeah, this format was definitely an interesting one. When I was first told about it, this really, got me really curious to see how these teams would play. And, well, essentially gameplay-wise, it's kind of more or less the same. Like you said, they're inadvertently helping each other out, but we do see sometimes, the same team from the same regions fighting each other, but at the end of the day, their points are tallied together, right? So if one team does really well, representing one region, but the other team's slacking a little bit, it just means they gotta maybe carry even harder, right? So it's an interesting dynamic. I definitely like the camaraderie with, the different teams from the different regions fighting together for their community.
Yeah, and I would like to envision that some communities, the teams will be maybe talking to each other afterwards and helping each other and saying, hey, in this game, I'd recommend you maybe pull off this kind of different rotation. You might end up getting it, supporting each other in that regard. Because if that means the whole community across the tournament gets more points, everybody wins in that regard. Now, for this day specifically, we do have a new group, Group E, entering the fold.
Yeah, Group E. We have I believe Group E. Yeah, we have Galore, Eastern Stars, Team Bravis, and Uncanny. Right, these teams did not get to play yesterday, and yesterday we saw it kind of took one game or so for them to start warming up. And now, so I'm wondering if for Group E, is it going to be the same? Or maybe if they got a chance to actually watch the games, they'll know what to expect a little bit better coming into today being their first day.
For sure. Now, the team for me that I really need to highlight, and I know that you'll back me up for it, is Eastern Stars, because they're coming into this as the biggest represented team in this community tournament. They participated in the PMGC West. And when you look at Romania, who are currently in 9th place on a total of 22 points, if any team is going to step up to the plate and carry them back up to the top, it has to be Eastern Stars.
Yeah, Eastern Stars definitely the most accomplished team out of all the teams in here. That's not to say they're going to have an easy time, though, because I want to bring this topic up, Imperium. And as a previous competitive player, I know how true it can be. But I've seen teams, like Tier 1 teams, the top teams, they will play scrims and practice matches in lower tier lobbies, and they'll actually have a tough time because so many of the teams there play so differently, in ways that you don't expect, and not necessarily they're playing better or worse, but it's just a different play style, so to say, right? So I'm curious to see how Eastern Stars, just arguably the best team, accolades wise out of all the teams here, if they're going to be able to really just, stomp through everyone, or if they might struggle a little bit because these other teams might play differently.
Yeah, I suppose that level of predictability could come into the fold for Eastern Stars. They're going to have a bit of a tough task because you do still have the likes of Game Lord, who rocked up, getting 2 chicken dinners yesterday, planting the French flag right on top of the mountain that is the leaderboard with a total of 101 points. Maximum will be very happy already. The community getting over the 100-point mark.
Yeah, France definitely leading there. Also, Italy in a close second at 83, right? We thought Italy was popping off, but speaking about popping off, we're going to go ahead and jump into the first game on Erangel. The playing path is there on your screen. This may be the first game for today, but a lot of these teams played yesterday, Imperium, and I want to see them come out even stronger than they did the first day.
We are starting on the hollow grounds of Erangel. 4 games today, of course, as you would have seen in the graphic. The lead up to the start of the broadcast, Erangel, Miramar, Sanhok, and ending on Erangel. Pretty standard stuff. But the playing path, a bit to the north, going to be harder for teams that want to maybe drop down on that kind of southern side of the map. Military Island as well. Let's see where they go.
So we were talking about Eastern Stars, and you mentioned the Romanian team's points, right? One thing I want to note, Imperium, is yesterday there was only 1 Romanian team playing. That's 4 Romanian men. So yesterday we had teams from both, like one community had 2 teams playing yesterday. So some points are skewed more higher for them, but teams like from the communities representing Romania, Spain, Portugal, and Slovakia, they only had 1 team playing yesterday. So this in a way is a chance for them to catch up, so to say, now that they have 2 teams representing that region today.
Very well said. You would have expected a little bit better from 4 Romanian men yesterday, even as a solo team. 22 points for the Romanian community, whereas when you look at RecSpec, they got 40 points for the Spanish community as the sole representative yesterday. So I do like the point that you do bring on board, as we see the circle on phase 1. It's very heavily on the east, a good bit of water in play. We do have 2 teams dropping in Yasnaya.
So we do have some more hot drops today. Yesterday, we didn't see that many on Erangel, so you mix in, you know, different flight paths, a new group playing, and now there's some more potential contention to happen. And this is a very eastern zone. I was just about to say this is a very eastern star, because if you take a look at eastern stars on the southeast, hey, this is a really great first circle for them to start out their first game of today.
Couldn't have asked for a better phase on circle, alright, for the Romanian side. Buna to all the Romanian community watching. I hope you're all having fun. 7 up. Fantastic team that looking to help carry the Slovakian and Czech Republic flag in this community tournament. They're gonna have to deal with Game Lord, a team that definitely proved themselves in the latter 2 games. But I would predict today that both of these teams will kind of disengage in their own separate way and make their way into this circle. I don't envision an engagement happening in Yasnaya.
I don't think so. Number 1, because fighting in Yasnaya is just super difficult. But number 2, it's an Eastern Circle, right? So both of these teams have a very good opportunity to prioritize a rotation to pick whatever central position they want in that first circle. Whereas if the circle is further away, maybe they realize, hey, we're not going to make it on a fast rotation anyways. We might want to see, you know, stick around, see if we could get any knocks, any kills potentially. But with the circle the way it is, and these 2 teams both very strong, it might be a stalemate, and they should just loot and rotate like you said.
4 minutes in already. Only 1 player. Actually, I don't know if a player has actually gone down, or if we started with 63 players and 1 team is only starting as a 3-man team. I can't help but think that's going to be the case.
I think I did see in the kill feed something popped up there.
Okay.
So, it was 64, 1 casualty already for this match.
Okay. I like how you're keeping an eye on the kill feed. You want to see the blood flow across these teams. I like it, CJ. I like it. The rotations from the teams that are around the George Paul area, especially with that playing path, is going to be interesting. Whether they leave it till phase 2 / the end of phase 1, or whether they go for a little bit of a deeper rotation early on and hope they don't get caught out, because teams could still be looting up.
Yeah, definitely. So for Game Lords, right, they had a really good day yesterday. I feel like they could easily carry that momentum into today, especially seeing how dominant they were. One thing I really like about Game Lord is when I was watching them play, when I cast teams play, as I watch them from an analytical standpoint, I'm envisioning if this is a top tier team, this is what's going to happen. And if you remember on the very last game of yesterday, I called out, if Game Lord can take this push up to this mountaintop and control it, they're gonna either win the game or pick up a lot of kills. And then that is exactly what they did, because they're a team that knows how to do things correctly. So I really want to see how they play today. And we already have an engagement coming up on your screen. A little, you know, ring around the rosy here. Let's see which one comes on top. He's got the UMP, but he doesn't have a vest. And oh, the headshot comes through. And that is 2 players down from this team. 4 RM. That is the 4 Romania men.
Uh-oh, Spaghetti-O, Sarah and Redox spot the last 2 players standing, and good play by Red Moon, because it was that little bit of ring around a rosy situation for Red Moon, but it was intentionally ring around a rosy, because if you saw on the minimap, his teammates were edging closer to where he was. As it happens, he didn't need them, but the point is, if he had have lost that 1v1, that backup would have been there, because he delayed the potential engagement. He waited until he had to, pulled it out, got the shots, got the knock, got the kill. 4 Romanian men will run with their tails between their legs. So good start for Red Moon. And I think the Italian community, we have to give them a lot of props. To me, they flew a little bit under the radar. The 2 teams, Red Moon, La Familia, of course, maybe overshadowed by Game Lord, of course, but to me, they flew very much under the radar.
They're already starting off today with 2 points, right? I believe they got both of the kills onto 4 Romanian men, so very good start for them. You know, Game Lord, definitely a team that will show up when needed, so Italy looking very strong right now. And just a quick little, you know, just interesting thing to know. I wonder if you know this, but in that little engagement, Imperium, do you want to know the advantage that the other player had from Red Moon, other than the fact that, you know, the person they were fighting didn't have a vest?
Was it how he was peeking around the side of that shack?
Yes, so it does have to deal with that, and this is just for the viewers too, in case you didn't know. But if you peek and push a player from your right-hand side, you have a higher advantage than peeking from the left-hand side. And so if you think back to that engagement just now, that player came from the 4 Romania men's, his left-hand side, meaning the opposition peaked from right-hand side, so he had a bigger advantage. And why? You have more of a opportunity to see the enemy a little bit earlier, peeking from your right-hand side, and that's just the way the game is set up. Essentially, your gun is shooting from your right hand, your vision of your character model is kind of coming also from your right-hand side.
Interesting. I never really thought about that. I've never thought about that. So absolutely fantastic observation as the members of Big start to rotate in through this phase 1, coming across the bridge that's in between Yasnaya and Rosshawk. I liked and really appreciated Big's aggression. I was talking to Mihi today, and I did say that I didn't like the rotation to Pachinki. He gave a defense. I appreciate it, but I still don't agree with it. However, I did say to him that I liked how aggressive the team were. They officially announced Mizzaro as a member of the Big team for 2022. So to me, this is a very exciting tournament for the side.
That's huge. I mean, we're into the new year, right? Teams are being shuffled, and I know those official roster announcements are always huge news, especially at the beginning of the year. Just thinking back to last year, there's so much roster shuffles going on. Who's actually playing with who? You'll see teams play with different players in scrims for like maybe a month, and then that roster announcement comes through, and it's like, wow, that's huge. So I'm really happy to hear Big has secured a player, especially Mizzaro, right? I'm actually familiar with that player. He's definitely, you know, he's got a lot of skill, got a lot of potential. So I hope he finds big success in Big.
Oh my lord, oh my god, oh my god. Even I'm proud of that one. But Uncanny, they suffered a knock at the hands of Chazmak around the shelter region. Good spread by Chazmak to have the elevated position. Of course, Uncanny do have a bit of a 2-2 split with the protection of the buildings. Me, don't go down this time. Not again. Disengage away. It happened yesterday, and it wasn't something that I like to see. Game Lord, they moved out of Yasnaya, and now they're camping the hillside. Good position by Game Lord.
Ooh, Game Lord, a very strong team, right? And we saw Big how aggressive they play. You see, they don't fully disengage this. They're not completely driving away. It looks like they're looking for maybe a potential opening. And Oh yeah, no, they're not just looking for opening. They're going for the push. You said they're very aggressive. They're being aggressive. Maybe not the cleanest of starts, and it looks very haphazard, but it could still go their way. And there you go, the opening not going over to the big, not the cleanest, but their aggression. They're keeping it up, and well, it's a 4v3 situation now against Game Lord. One of the teams that I was saying is really strong.
Okay, outside of that knock with the nade coming out, where's the response from Game Lord? There's no way that Big should have gotten away from that. In most other competitive settings, Big would have been absolutely eaten alive in this sense. Mizawa goes down. Mihi was not so sway. Beast is left on his own, and although it looked to start off surprisingly well for Big, it is going from bad to worse. Beast is able to get the revive. The knockdown comes on through his... It is going to be him left on his own, and the backstab from Akashi on the rotation. Game Lord, they didn't have to lose Narvello. They did. They still come out on top. To me, that was really sloppy from Big. There's no way they should have gone for that engage. They were really lucky to get one kill, in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely sloppy. The biggest mistake for me is when they did the push, all 4 players were pushing. You see top level teams, they have at least 2 people covering the initial push. They have some sort of setup right afterwards, but that one just was haphazard all over the place. But like I said yesterday, right? I'd never knock the teams that try to go for aggression and get wiped out.
Yeah, okay.
Because it's a learning process. At the end of the day, you'll never learn unless you make the mistakes. Of course, I expected a little more out of Big 2 Imperium. I'm right there with you. I feel like they should have done that push better than they did. 100%.
Okay, fair enough. I appreciate where you're coming from. I'll try not to be too harsh on the big boys, as Chazmac still looking in the direction of Uncanny. Phase 2's popped up. We didn't see where Phase 2 went, but we do look in the kill feed, and the 100 boys are starting to take in a little bit of an engagement, pick up a kill or 2 here or there. Seems like the circle is a little bit back over and towards the western side, maybe a little bit down south. Mansion and Lumberyard Hill is massively in play on this phase 2.
Yes. Yeah, the circle pretty much shifted more south, and it kind of hovers around the eastern side from what I can tell from the map, right? So this is going to be a very interesting zone. You know, that Lumberyard area is essentially a giant mountaintop, if you think about it. And covered, oh, there we go. There's that map real quick. So yeah, it's a very hard shift down to the south. We'll see how these teams adapt to it. As far as Eastern Stars go, I'm pretty sure they're still just chilling.
Yeah, we got a very quick snapshot of Phase 2. Not for long enough, in my opinion. But we did see the Eastern Stars boys chilling down on the south eastern side of Lumberyard Hill is 7 up. Start to engage a little bit more heavily on
that left-hand peak.
That's going to be that left-hand peak indeed. Losing
very
out
disadvantage
to the 100. And that leaves 7 up with 2 players.
Yeah, so just to elaborate real quick on left-hand peak, right-hand peak. If your gun is shooting from your right arm, like imagine peeking behind a rock or something, you have to stick your body way further out on the left side to see the enemy and to shoot the enemy, whereas if you peek from your right side, you don't have to expose your body as much, and you could see the enemy a split second quicker. So we talked about it a little bit earlier, right-hand peek, left-hand peek. Hopefully that makes a little bit more sense to the viewers out there, and that was a prime example of, you know, how disadvantaged a left-hand peek can be.
But how can you, if you're forced into a left-hand peek situation real quick, is there anything that you can do to soften that blow or turn it around so that you're not as heavily disadvantaged?
I mean, it's always going to be a disadvantage on a left-hand peek, and that just pretty much comes down to player skill, how good your aim is, how fast is your reaction, and all of that. But if you watch players, high-level players play isolated 1v1s, the reason why they kind of jockey back and forth on their peaks is because both players want the advantage of right-hand peek, and neither player will want to give it up freely.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. I think it's something to me, I find that a healthy enough tip where you're just observant and you need to be the extra quick on your reaction. You need to be extra aware in the moment. I know it's incredibly hard, and honestly, players do not get enough credit in my eyes on how skilled they are with just a goddamn mobile device. Just a 6.7,
Yes.
6.5 inch screen, right? It's ridiculous. The
Yeah.
Blue Zone
Oh,
of
look
Phase
at
2
Eastern
start to
Stars.
close in. Eastern Stars, a wonderful spread. You have LMV coming right on top of the 2-4 Romanian men boys, but they do have a little bit of traffic in front of them with the likes of Showdown, and I think Mega Power and another team.
The circle, I mean, the positioning of the teams coming into this zone pretty much tells you how the circle has shifted. Just hard east every single time. The west, hard east and south. So that's why the western side and the northern side of the map is so congested. It's just circle dynamics, right? Naturally, teams will progress in this way. And, you know,
But
some teams can take advantage of it too.
Why is there nobody on top of Lumberyard?
It's because the teams that were center earlier, you know, decided to keep their positioning and creates that buffer zone from other teams able to get more central on that circle. But with that shift, it looks like we're heading deep into the hearts of Milta. So this is going to be a very, very messy game ending, in my opinion.
To me, a missed opportunity for a team to go on top of Lumberyard, get some elevated position, control a core area of the hill, and then play that advantage on towards this phase 3 shift, but it is what it is. A very tricky phase 3 shift going hard down south. You have a bit of water in play. The bridge is coming on through, and as you said, in the heart of Milta.
Milta, one of the trickier cities to play in, simply because the buildings aren't too, you know, they don't have really tall buildings, so you don't get much vision playing in Milta to know where potential enemies are, where you can plan a rotation out. So that city is a tough one to get in and out of. So I'm curious to see which teams take Milta now versus later. And of course, it's an RNG, right? You could be betting that the circle's ending in Milta, but can easily shift off it and punish you for it.
Committing to farm an area of this phase 3, which we haven't really talked about because it is quite valuable. However, I think it's a little bit of a stickier commitment, I believe it or not, to go deep into farm compared to Milta, in my opinion.
Farm, you'll always have like two teams playing farm in a circle like this, right? It's kind of split between that northern farm area and the southern farm area, and I would say both teams can rotate out of it easily.
Okay.
More or less, because, you know, they're facing opposite sides. The only real issue is if it goes north, you do have to drive past that northern farm side, and if it goes south, vice versa, right? But they do have a bit of a clearing around the farm area that they can control and manage, where teams just can't set up. Similar to these compounds, you see the vast, you know, distance of open land from compound to compound. I would prefer this area over Milta because you got space to work with.
Okay, I agree, and I absolutely love this 2-2 split from LMV.
Yes.
Couldn't ask for a better spread in phase 3. It does come with a couple of risks if a full squad was to crash two of them, but in my eyes, that is less likely to happen, and it does give way more of an advantage in terms of control of this circle.
Yeah, Eastern Stars finally getting into the fray. They got an opening knock there, so I'm curious to see. Eastern Stars, very well accomplished team. They know they're definitely one of the top dogs in here as far as experience goes. So my question begs is, are they just going to play aggressive and just know they're better and farm a lot of kills here? It looks like with that opening knock, they are kind of positioning up to push this team in. You see that player on your minimap on the far right-hand side of the map trying to get a different angle right now.
Yeah, but in my eyes, that flank is just too long to execute, and he's forced back because Athos took a bit of damage. It doesn't help that Golden Esports is getting involved on a bit of a cheeky third party, but to me, good idea, just not really executed in the right way for Eastern Stars. To me, they needed 2 knocks for that kind of long rotation, that long play to work out.
And if anything, maybe that player that was going for the flank did spot out Golden. So they're going to readjust and fall back. So Eastern Stars, they still have 4 up. This player has to be a little bit aware, though. You see him looking that way, so he does know. And the circle shifts once again towards the west. A little bit off Milta, but that center area of that circle, ooh, that's one of my favorite zones. It's very entertaining to watch.
I'm very interested to see how Mega Power are going to deal with this, because I get that they're away from a lot of the cluster teams that are going to be fighting for an edge of circle position, but that beach side does come with a little bit of compromise. You can be shot at from that very eastern edge of the circle. We'll have to wait to see how it comes out, as they are at least going to be taking a couple of shots towards the members of Showdown, who do suffer a knock here, there, and everywhere. But for the time being, Mega Power, this spread is working out.
I was curious to see if Rex would actually go and push that. You saw him hop down and hover around his buggy, but I think he realizes the team's in a great position to hold a good split control, so they don't want to risk a push. Plus, the circle just popped. You don't know what other teams could potentially rotate into you, right? So maintaining that positioning for a little bit before getting too aggressive. We see the one of the few last players out of Team 17. That is Team Bravas. This is their first day playing. They did not play yesterday. They've already lost 2 players with only 1 kill. So struggling a little bit, but at least they managed to get into that circle.
Spyro gets knocked on his way in to meet up with his teammate. Don't know if that will be confirmed. LV, have they joined back up as a full squad? I don't think so. Not yet. That 2-2 split still being pulled out from them. So we'll have to wait and see. Curious, of course, where Big are, where Game Nord are. Seems to be that cluster coming in on that northern edge is still going strong. 7-up. Last player, Starkey, representing Czech Republic / Slovakia community. Can't see him lasting too long.
Yeah, and also just way far away from the circle, right? You saw him out there next to his buggy. That's all he's got left. No more teammates. We see here Team Uncanny representing Portugal with 3 members left alive. And just look at that minimap. This is Milton. This is what I'm talking about. It is such a cluster in there. Once you're kind of committed in, it's very hard to get out of. So let's take a look on the next circle if these teams will be rewarded for taking that Milta area. But Eastern Stars, look at that on the eastern side of Milta. Definitely the best position because they got center circle control from there. So very good split, and teams are definitely spread out quite evenly here.
I would actually have a 3-1 split, especially on this next shift, which has gone in their direction. Still a little bit of water in play. I believe that Dor and Kapal and Bazzi are too heavily split. Keep Athos inside, holding down that position, but you need 3 together to stop any team from the north breaching inside the circle.
But it is so difficult for teams to breach in when they got other teams to run through, like these 2 teams taking a fight.
True.
These 2 teams are going to suffer a lot of damage, and by the time they push into Eastern Stars, they're going to be battered up and bruised for sure. We're looking at Team Uncanny here, fighting against Chasma Gaming representing France. Chasma has a better spread, some better positions, honestly, with those buildings, those 2-story buildings, whereas Uncanny just working from one angle on the low ground, on the floor.
Chasmac having MZ. IGL in PMPL. Hopefully he'll be able to make a difference overall. Pocus again, continuing to play for the side formerly of UDR Killers. Trazen gets knocked. Lovely nade being thrown out by uncalled for. Portuguese side of Uncanny. You're gonna get second on the Shadow win. You peaked too hard, you paid the price.
That was a pretty good peek too. He did a lean peek to throw that grenade, not like he peeked out wide, but I guess the shots were just better. The aim out of these players definitely, looking really good. Mega Power readjusting their position. They did end up losing 1 player trying to hold that split. So splits are always good, but you got to know how to do it correctly or else you end up losing players unnecessarily. So a little readjustment there. They're going to group up as 3. Chasma Gaming get their revive back up. They have 2 kills, 4 players still alive, but they got to breach and Pocus. Looking.
Yes.
You see him looking that way towards Eastern Stars. That's the next call out. The closest spot next in the circle. They're going to try and breach on in.
Tick tock, time is coming up as the blue zone starts to make its way in. However, if you focus too much on the edge of the circle, you could get absolutely sandwiched to smithereens, and that's what's happening to uncalled for. Down they go. Mega Power is still trying to protect their position in the southwestern edge of the circle as they spray down on towards the likes of 100. LMV have opted to go for the coastline, and it's worked out. Lodge's fears the wrath of what's going on around him. Knocked. Let's see if his teammate can get him back up.
Just goes down, but there's that quick revive on the other side of things. There we go. Chasmod Gaming, they went for that push, was not successful. And take a look at Eastern Stars. They're still playing kind of split up, and they haven't lost a single player. That's just the chaos of, you know, holding a nice split, and then you got multiple teams coming into you, but they're fighting each other on the way, and you're able to reap those rewards, reap those kills, while still maintaining a split control.
You said it. You called it. You predicted that it wasn't going to be easy for any team that was on that northern side in Milta to make their way into the edge of the circle, and they've all gone down. I believe it's just one team that's on the eastern side in Milta, ready to maybe move into the coastline. LMV should have the angle shots on them. They're not really looking for Mega Powers. They did get a knock onto Lodges, so Mega Power held back, and indeed Golden Esports, one player gets knocked.
Yeah, and Eastern Stars, I took a look at their kills. They're up to 7, maybe even more now since our camera shifted off them. So we question Eastern Stars, like, you know, one of the most accomplished teams in here. How are they going to fare? Sure, they've got nice circles, but they're holding a split against so many teams, not losing a single player and getting kills, while Golden, on the other hand, trying to make their way in, fight their way in, and who else but Eastern Stars to finish that one out for them.
And now LMV come a cropping. The 100 Icy goes down. Eliseo Chammaria, the last player left standing for his side. The blue zone gonna chunk him down. Only 2 bandages left. I'll give him about half health and a pocket full of dreams. 6 teams that are left up. Say 420 onto Red Moon. Red Moon's still going strong for Italy. They try to continue on what was a good run yesterday in the Italian community, with the German side of LMV carrying the flag off the back of Big going down earlier. Of course, you've highlighted them. Eastern Star still alive as a full squad.
Yeah, LMV also with a full squad representing Germany. It looks like it's going to come down to these 2 teams. We still see teams outside of zone fighting each other. Mega Power, they grouped up together. They kept 3 alive. They'll manage to pick up some kills here, but breaking into that next zone is going to be quite difficult, especially when you got a Snake here with an MG3, but no shots connecting. Didn't even get a single knock. Very good job by Mega Power. And oh, LMV, I don't think they have any clue that MVP is right there, right next to them.
Trying to time it right. He steps up.
Oh, he gets 2.
Gets 1. Gets 2. Looking for the 3rd. Running out of time. Eliseo goes down at the hands of Bazzi. Good effort. Very good effort. And it's Eastern Stars with 10 eliminations to shut them down.
Oh my gosh, Eastern Stars right now just coming in huge. There's another team, Mega Power right there. I said they're probably not going to make it in. They're desperate with that smoke path. That's all they got left. I mean, they got a car still, but that's going to definitely get blown up here. There's no way he's driving that one in, and he does go down. We're down to a 4v4. Eastern Stars Imperium versus LMV. Germany versus Romania.
What did I say? If there was one team to bring Romania back up to the standings, it was going to be Eastern Stars. They are the PMGC team. They are the best team from Romania. Now they're looking to continue that trend, but a surprising success story. The latter half of 2021, the German side of LMV, Lou, Talon, Perks, and Hidan, they've been together as a roster for a good 2 years, competing in the LAN event of the ESL Mobile Open back in 2019. They've just continued. They made their way. They made improvements. Talon stepped back and played for the likes of Team Umber and PMPL, gained that experience back to his roster. They made it work, but the biggest challenge right now is getting past the might of Eastern Stars.
With Eastern Stars positioning, and I believe the circle kind of favoring more so Eastern Stars, it's going to be a very rough one. You see them all prone trying to make their way in. They can't see anything. It's just a bunch of smoke in front of their faces and a bunch of grenades and Molotovs as well to prevent them from going any further. I would have to give this one to Eastern Stars. Kapahala on the flank on the south side. If hidden, Hidan can find this on Kapahala. It might open it up, and he does. It's a 4v3 situation. LMV could potentially take this Imperium.
Why aren't they pushing it? Why aren't they pushing it? You gotta look, do basic maths. 8 players left. You got 4. Your opponent's got 4. You have the body advantage off the back of the knock. Indeed, the duo push comes in. Atlas takes down Perks. It's gonna be a return fire by Talon onto Atlas, followed by Hidan taking down
1v1.
the likes of Doran left standing. He gets the shots off, and that's gonna be a win by Doran onto Lou and the chicken dinner for Eastern Stars.
Wow, that one got extremely close. You know, LMV after that opening, they were really bringing it in close, but Eastern Stars still took that one. The PMGC accomplishment showing through there, right? A very experienced team. It got really dicey, I'm not gonna lie. LMV put up a really good fight, but that 1v1, you saw the aggression out of Eastern Stars. He knew he had somewhat of advantage.
Yeah.
He took that confidence, and maybe that's where the experience, you know, really shined through. Those clutch situations, he did not choke that one. He secured it for the Eastern Stars.
And we could be looking at an even better Eastern Stars team for 2020. Reason why I say that is not just on this game, no. It's the fact that they have Doran as a new player in the side.
Okay.
He's formerly of 4 Romanian boys, right?
Oh, okay.
So he has kind of PMPL experience, but, you know, still needs to find himself possibly. And in this game alone, at least 6 kills. 6 kills. I know the Eastern Stars are going to have much bigger challenges across the 2022 year, but if this is a sign of what they can do with a new player, you gel him into how the team plays, you give him that freedom where he can maybe be a little bit more aggressive, and god damn it, Eastern Stars could be even more successful this year. Very impressive performance.
Yeah, and essentially what really could spur a team forward into the new year is a new blood, right? When teams switch 2 to 3 players, it's kind of a big question mark, but when you have an established team that picks up one new player, that new blood that could, you know, really inspire and invigorate the team. Like you mentioned, he used to play on 4 Romanian boys. I remember casting tournaments with you, watching the 4 Romanian boys, and I was saying like, wow, this team is looking very strong, very promising. And so, you know, the Eastern Stars, they were already a solid roster, and they pick up one new player there. It might really change things around. And if, like you said, if this game shows anything, I mean, they're just absolutely wrecking it right there. I believe they finished with like maybe 18 total kills on the first game alone for their first match playing in this tournament.
Yeah, you really can't fault that that level of work from Eastern Stars. But a couple of teams that showed up as well, of course, LMV, I think, had a strong performance. Mega Power, to me, really standing tall in that regard. Maybe they could have done a bit more aggression-wise. He got rid of that split that they had a little bit earlier on, where it would have allowed them to maybe pick up a couple of extra kills, because they kind of gave that coastal line position to LMV. Now, I'm not saying that you know, my point is, if they had have committed to a core area a little bit earlier, they could have maybe have picked up a cheekier kill onto LMV and allowed themselves a bit more room to go into the later circles. Just a slightly wrong timing for Mega Power, but it was still a good game.
Yeah, since you touched on Mega Power, I'll have to chime in too, just from an analytical standpoint, right? I believe on a certain circle shift, like towards that late game, they should have prioritized the coastal line, but you saw them group up together as 3 at the building, right? The coastal line, sure, it's not hard cover, but it's much easier to push from the coast into the building side if the circle did shift back to the building. But the opposite is not true, from the buildings to the coastal line. And so the viability, the play options was much higher from the coastal line, so that's when they should have prioritized that instead. But of course, you live and you learn, right? And maybe Mega Power did learn something from that game after seeing LMV, you know, taking a second place finish in that game, and they could have been in that position instead.
Yeah, for sure. And maybe this is just the part of me that has been used to the best of the best competitiveness, but again, I want to go back to the no team on phase 2 going into the center lumberyard. Part of why lumberyard and that hill is such a good part of the map when the circle is kind of even in any way around it centrally, because you're able to spread out a bit 2-1-1, 2-2, even 1-1-1-1, and grab information early on, or even
Mhm.
just take one side of it and have a bit of a spread around at one side. Whereas when nobody goes there, I just
Mhm.
think it's a sign of a bit of a weaker lobby in that regard. So I'd like to see
Right.
teams recognize that that is there for the taking, go it and use it to your advantage.
I 100% agree with you there. I think at weaker lobbies, the issue is when you're rotating in from the edge, right? When you're coming in on those circle shifts, some teams that were previously in that spot just feel comfortable. They don't want to rotate any more center. And so when teams rotating in from the outside meet opposition, those teams don't know how to adjust and just path around them, right? The instant they meet gunfire, they're like, okay, let's just sit here where it's safe and wait for the next circle before we rotate. And that was pretty evident in this game. And we'll probably see that throughout the rest of this tournament too, because like we said, this lobby is not one of the higher tier lobbies. We
Yeah,
definitely got spoiled by watching PMGC so recently. But I do see shines of greatness, out of a lot of these teams like LMV.
sure.
That was a disadvantage 4v4. They almost brought it back and won that. And then Mega Power, some adjustment mistakes, but they still made it towards the late game. And, I think they got third place. So there are, teams in here that do have certain qualities that really shine. But in a game like PUBG Mobile, there's so many different facets of skills and techniques to be mastered. And it's going to take a long time for any team to really be competent in all the different, skills that there is in this game.
Yeah, exactly. And LMV, to highlight them just a little bit more, back when they played the PMPL full split, when they were on a massive tear, one of the super weekends, and I mean like a massive tear, one of the big strengths that they showed was their ability to rotate from a bit of an awkward position outside the circle, and they would go for like one of those sweeping rotations, like from west to north to southeast.
Hmm.
A very sweeping rotation, and it would work out for them, and they'd control the game quite strongly from that fantastically wide rotation. And they
Hmm.
did that this time. Again, yes, we highlighted how maybe Mega Power's slowness made it a little bit easier, but
Hmm.
showing that this game just reminded me of how good LMV can be when they pull something off like that.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether it's lack of consistency or otherwise, but they need to show just a little bit more of that. So it gives me greater confidence in what they're able to achieve. But seeing it in this game one was a really nice way to start the day.
Yeah, LMV did not have an easy rotation into those late zones, and I think they mastered it quite beautifully and adjusted quite well. Another team, that did, I would have to say, have easy rotation would be Eastern Stars, right? But besides that, like when you do get favorable zones, favorable circles, it wasn't like they got circle blessed every zone either. But they just optimized everything from beginning to end and they
Mm,
got the chicken dinner. And that's what you want to see out of a top level consistent team. You give them a little bit of favor in the very first circle and a little bit of favor in the upcoming ones, and they'll adjust accordingly. They'll play the splits accordingly. They'll maximize not just the placement points with the chicken dinner, but they'll also maximize the kills. And you saw how many kills they got. And I'm
yeah.
willing to say already, just a bold prediction here. I feel like at the end of this tournament, Romania is going to come out on top, Imperium.
Ooh, okay.
Mhm.
Okay. I can get behind that. I'm sure the Romanian community can get behind that. And if you are right, you will have lots of love coming your way from the Romanian community, because I can say from experience, the Romanian community in PUBG Mobile is absolutely wonderful.
Mhm.
So yeah, for sure, that could be the case. We'll have to wait and see. One big thing though is Chasmac uncalled for. Simple reminder: don't commit yourself to a city this early
Mhm.
in the game, right? I get it. The circle on phase 3 with the big amount of water, it did leave kind of not the easiest rotation, but what looks like a good idea, what
Mhm.
looks like a good idea short term is a big negative long term a lot of the time. So you're like, oh yeah, Yeah, that's an
Mhm.
easy option. Let's go, Milta. Come on. Come on. You're stuck there, and then the circle shifted massively away, and they got absolutely blown apart. So it's
Yeah.
like, think a little bit further ahead.
Yeah, I always got to say this. If you have 4 players alive, take the risk earlier on to set yourself up for a good late game, like a top 5. Take those 4 players, use your teamwork, and breach. And don't use those 4 players just to take that easy option edge into the
Yeah.
very edge of a Milta, because, no one wants that spot. And then on that shift, you have 4 players still, but now it's insurmountably harder to make your next connection. And speaking
Yeah.
of, the next connection, let's take a look at the highlights for this match that we just watched before we head into game number 2, Imperium.
Welcome back to the PUBG Mobile European Community Tournament with myself, Imperium, and the wonderful Zute. We are one game down, won by the might of Romania, Eastern Stars. With Zute, we're heading into the second game of the day. It's on Miramar, the desert terrain. Who's going to be looking good? Who's going to be looking bad?
I'll tell you one thing. I'm always feeling good every time you introduce me, Imperium, because you always go by the wonderful Zute, right? I got a challenge for you.
Yeah.
And just so I can hear more about myself, every time you introduce me, use a different word, like the amazing Zute, the splendid.
Should I add on top of what I've already used?
No. Just change the word every
No.
now and then.
Okay. No. You know what? I'm gonna add on top of it because I wanna boost your ego even more, because it's more than deserved.
Oh no, I mean, Imperium, I always love working with you, man. Like, I think you're what. First time I ever did an actual cast was with this guy right here, Imperium. It's been an amazing journey. It's been a whole year. Hopefully there's more to come. And with this Miramar game, well, I mean, the plane path, Imperium, it's perfect. You can't ask for even any better plane path. A nice even split all the way down diagonally on this Miramar. Should be an easy game for a lot of players, just in terms of getting to their drop spots at least.
Oh yeah, big time. We had it in the Miramar game yesterday as well, where it was a diagonal split dead in the center, allowed the teams to get to where they wanted to go. We did still see a couple of early game fights happening, but it's less so this time around. It seems like there's just two teams in Monte Nuevo. That is, I think, Chazmak and another team. One of the new teams, actually. If I'm not mistaken, it's Bravas. There you go. I think it's Chazmak and Bravas that's dropped in Monte Nuevo, I think.
Yeah, Bravas representing Spain, and Chazmak, of course, UK, and they're already getting into fight. All of this player's got Breaker, a pistol, trying to readjust his positioning, but he does go down, and he's steered with a Winchester, trying to help whatever way he can, but not exactly the best gun to be using. Of course, we just started looting, so he hasn't found much, not even a vest yet.
It's not Chazmak, it's actually Showdown Gaming from UK. Apologies.
Showdown.
Yeah, Showdown. So for now, we'll have to see what Bravas can do. It's a bit of a spread from both sides, but that's working out for Showdown. Of course, they picked up the first kill, so it'll give them a lot of confidence. I'd like to see Malik maybe join up as quickly as possible, so Showdown can start to get this fight really underway and clean it up, so they can prioritize that early game rotation. Because if they do it too late, we're already 3 minutes in, right? You get to the 8-10 minute mark and you're still here trying to close out this fight. I don't want to see that happen with Showdown.
I agree. And just now, did you notice Naz punching the air and jumping as he's moving around? That's actually another small detail with playing competitive. What it essentially does is, like, it lowers your footstep sounds in a sense of, if you imagine it, if you're running around the whole time, you have consistent audio cues you're giving away. Whereas if you're jumping from position to position, the time you're in the air, you don't make sound. So even that little bit of, like, advantage that you might get could play into, you know, a potential fight or positioning. Of course, right there, nothing really, you know, more to be said than, you know, he's just doing it for the sake of doing it. But, you know, these competitive players, they have to leverage every little advantage they can, especially in a game like PUBG Mobile, where that's the name of the game. You leverage any advantage you can, given how crazy the RNG might get sometimes.
And you're not always going to get it right, but an opportunistic play is just something that I absolutely love highlighting, love looking out for, and any team, any player that can find that and take advantage of it, it's a win-win in my eyes. Phase 1 is a little bit of a pain in the ass, in my opinion. Not only is it in a bit of a map, which I don't think a lot of these teams will be hugely familiar with, but it does incorporate quite a good bit of the south side of the map, the Minas del Sur, Los Higos Island, and that automatically shrinks what is realistically strong landmass to take control of.
Yeah, this circle is definitely not easy for many of these teams. I mean, the thing with Miramar, if you want to see what circles, are more easily rotatable versus others, just take a look at the roads, right? If you take a look at the road from east to west, the roads are pretty nice and spacious from east to west. A lot of flat terrain, meaning even if the road is blocked or taken, you can use the flat terrain. But from north to south, look at the center of that zone. It is a giant mountain.
Yeah.
With no roads cutting down north to south, except for this one you see on the screen right now where the fight's happening. You have to drive through a city, and one team in the city, that road is instantly an obsolete road for you to take safely, right? So this circle is going to be really tricky for many teams to navigate through.
One thing that I'm kind of noticed is Eastern Stars didn't go for their usual Impala drop. They switched it up to Valdemar. I think that's because even though it was a diagonal plane path, it was just a slightly more heavily up north, so maybe they felt it was a little bit easier, quicker to just, hey, go for that Valdemar drop, did their research, and they'll take control of it. So it has paid off, especially with this phase 1.
Yeah, Showdown Gaming playing very aggressive here. They already got the opening, and you see they readjusted to take the fight to the BRV team, which is once again, I believe, Team Bravas, yeah, representing Spain. So Morphe Boy playing very quiet. He knows the rest of his team isn't fully set up yet, and he's trying to bait the players in a bit more. He's got to take the shots now, though, and he does spring up, gets the advantage there with the opening shots, but instantly Showdown with the support, and it's a 1-for-1 trade. Where's the rest of Team Bravas? Where's the follow-up there?
I know. There needs to be a follow-up because I think Morphe did a pretty good job, and then it comes instantly turned around. Oh my lord, PMECT. You left absolutely no stone unturned, and Spyro left as the last player. Normally Spyro is associated with the purple dragon in the video game on PUBG Mobile. It's associated with this Bravas player, and he doesn't look to be conquering any other dragons in this game. He's now in survival mode.
We have Big once again getting into fight. I think almost every match we've commentated, Imperium, Big is in the first, second, or third engagement on your screen. So they're sticking true to what they're trying to develop and practice, which is taking these 4v4 fights. I really love that. They've come into these games, with two goals. One, to represent their community, and number two, to practice and develop their style.
Yeah,
so they're sticking true to it. This time around, it looks like they're getting the better of it. 2 knocks already onto the opposing team of GR. That is GR looking at the tags right here. Greek Army. Okay, yeah, representing Greece, of course. Greece not having the best time.
What? They're called Greek Army and they're representing Greece?
Yes.
I didn't know that.
They are representing Greece indeed.
Wow, jeez, that's a mind mess up for me. Wow, LMV though off the back of his second place, they're pushing hard onto the 100. Confirmation coming through onto Alicio, the MVP of back-to-back PFPLs in the 2021 year, not having a good run of things. Of Reznov gonna be the second player knocked down for the 100.
He Dan with that M24 telling him, hey, you're shooting at my teammate for a second too long, and I don't like that. I'm going to take your head clean off 100 down to 2. LMV with 3. They're able to get that res right there, and they're definitely getting all the angles and pushing in on 100. 100, I don't know what they could do here. I think this is pretty much it. Maybe they could get another knock, maybe a thirst at best, but back onto your screen. That is Bravas eliminated right there. That fight finishes up, and this is what I'm talking about, man. These rotations are difficult, not just because of the terrain, but teams will take similar pathings just because the rotation options are so limited, and they start running into each other.
However, one thing to point out, that fight ended between Showdown and Bravas 9 minutes in. That's the one kind of failure I see in Showdown, is that it just took them too long to close it, that team fight. A bit of a turnaround for the 100 as they get a second knock onto LMV as well as a confirmation onto Lou. So that's just Perks left on his own. it all went horribly wrong for LMV. They looked to be in control of that fight. I don't know what happened there.
They stopped the aggression. They hunkered down to try and get that revive, and they just didn't put the pressure on. And we talked about this the other day. Finish the fight before you get the revive, because when you go for a revive with a man advantage, you're taking that man advantage away. And the other team, 100, just brought the fight right back, and they pretty much 2v4'd that team. Eastern Stars getting into an engagement there. Beautiful shots, the accuracy, not missing a single bullet. They're almost picking up a kill onto the side of Golden.
Look for a golden opportunity. Find it, you take advantage of it. Yes, I went there. Yes, I went there. Phase 1 about to end. Coming into phase 2. We highlighted on this phase 1 where you had the kind of central massive mountains in around Chumasera. There already was a team converging in that region, so we'll have to see if they're joined by a couple of others. Just all Golden Esports suffer casualty. That can be the case on a rotation in Miramar. It's not the worst thing in the world, not ideal, but Golden Esports, at least they're now in that Ladrillera area, deep into the heart of phase 1. They have high ground. It's a good point of contact.
Second circle comes up, and it does not get any easier for these teams. It just kind of centers up right on that terrain that's so hard to navigate. You still see so many teams out in the blue. You see the 100, LMV, and also teams just coming out from the blue on the north side, Team Galore. So quite a few teams not yet in the circle, but that's to be expected when it's so hard down to the southwest.
Nobody really going for that kind of deep south rotation. So, you know, just to the north of that kind of South Island. So that has meant that there's a bit more of a cluster on that kind of northwestern edge of the circle, specifically around Monte Nuevo. Showdown Gaming going to be joined by Chazmac on that hillside. You have the likes of Game Lord in that area, and of course Golden Esports are going to be looking to take advantage of their high ground position.
I just want to take a second to appreciate the beauty of this game. I'm looking at perks right now. I'm looking at Team 100 deep in the blue, right? They have to legit drive in their car for like maybe 5 to 6 minutes before they get anywhere close to the zone. And all of this is being done on a mobile device. Isn't that crazy? Like just how big this game is that you can fit onto a mobile game, and you have all this different, these buildings, these terrains. You have like 50, 60 other players playing with you at one time. Like it's quite ridiculous, you know, how amazing as far as a mobile game goes, like, you know, PUBG Mobile. So just take a second to appreciate that real quick.
Big time, man. Big time. Yeah, well said. Well said. The action has slowed down a little bit as we are waiting for phase 2 to start to close in. Showdown, IU, waiting, getting information. They still have a full squad. And again, just to kind of highlight, if Showdown had have closed out that fight on the Bravos within the 5-minute mark, I think they would be in a little bit of a cleaner position, whereas they've been locked to, it's not a bad spot, but it's also not the best. They're locked to this position outside Monte Nuevo now.
Yeah, as long as they have a clean game plan on how to, you know, fight and rotate into further circles from this position, it's fine. I agree with you. They could have been more central if they didn't take so long to take that fight. But honestly, like, I would argue it's almost better to have a cleaner, more of a, you know, solid game plan from a certain position than just to be more centered on a certain position, right? Because that's the hard shifts, if you get hard shifted off a certain way, you don't have a clean game plan from the center position you were earlier, it could still get very difficult. Like you see top teams across the world that play on the edge, so to say. And that's because they purposely put themselves in those positions because they have a very solid game plan on how to play all the potential shifts. Now, does SDG have a plan like that? That's to be seen.
I am starting to believe they do, because they got a knock onto one of the Game Lord players Now, it was stolen away by Golden Esports. To me, that shows their game plan is to suppress the team in front of us, so we have a little bit of a cleaner entry point. Maybe pull off a little bit earlier because they don't recognize that Chazmak are on the hills to the west of them and they could get sandwiched down on towards that roadside. But at the end of the day, I see what Showdown are at least attempting to do.
And this is, after all, only the second circle going into the third. The circle shifts, you know, it could go any which way. And once everybody starts rotating, that's also an opportunity for you to just cut through and cut by them. So Golden, or Game Lord right here, down to 3. A team that we really hyped up yesterday. They're having a little bit of a slower start, but then again, yesterday, they only pop off towards the later stages of the tournament day. So maybe we might see the same here. They're just, you know, taking a little bit of time to warm up.
Big have a big spread, no pun intended, genuinely across Chumasera. Look at that. All 4 corners. North, south, east, west.
Look at Eastern Stars as well.
Is that too big of a spread by Big?
No, not at all. Not in the second circle. And
okay.
the more capable you are as a team, that also just means the more capable you are as an individual player. And playing these splits, if done correctly, is not a problem at all. You just have to adjust correctly when one player gets pressured, and your teammates also need to adjust to make sure they support you correctly while you maintain your positioning or you pull back.
Well, I think they might want to reevaluate the position. Basically centered up into Chumasera.
Yes.
I'm not saying a lot of teams are going to go there, but you're 360 degrees surrounded by teams. If you leave it too late to join back up together, you're going to get picked off one by one. Eastern Stars are one of the teams that have realized that, and they are together as a full squad. That's a good, well, actually, sorry, 3-1, my apologies, but that's still a much better spread than 1-1-1-1 or even 2-2.
And you saw Big right there. That player was playing solo, and the second Eastern Stars showed up, he just readjusted and went back. And Mazzaro, he took the high ground to make sure he could give Beast the cover to make sure he has a safe ejection right there. So really well done. Mega Power getting into the fight. One of the players of Eastern Stars does go down. I think he is safe out of compound, but just now, I think Big Beast also heard those shots ring through, and it looks like he's trying to get a little bit closer to see if he can potentially third party.
Yeah, that revive should be able to come out. Mega Power, good opportunistic play from them. They showed what they could do with their position in the first game. They showed they do have the ability to readjust, even if it is at times a bit late. I love the fact that they've gone into Chumasera, but it's not a deep connection, right? That's a great exit strategy. In terms of Chumasera, and I go back to that word exit because I always remember it's one of the first things you taught me when we casted the PMCO Spring Split is how teams set themselves up to exit the previous circle into the next.
Yeah, the exit strategy is very important, especially when you're committing to a city. So many teams just commit to the city for the sake of feeling safe within some buildings, but then circle shifts away. No exit strategy, you're pretty much just screwed at that point.
Out of 100, down to 2 players, Icy and Daddy IGL. If there's one man that can keep his composure and pull something out of nothing in a game, I feel like it's Daddy. His maturity and his experience speaks for itself in the world of PUBG Mobile EU competitive. Together with Icy, they'll have to hover on the edge of the circle. Lovely knock by Mega Power once again onto Doran of Eastern Stars. It's a trade. They're further away from each other, so I doubt any push is going to come through. It's just, you know, they're just kind of waving to each other in the form of bullets.
Pretty much. Yeah, I mean, I think it's great, too, that these players are taking peak battles rather than, you know, just hiding. You know, you can practice your reflexes here. Both teams, right, can practice their aim, their reflexes, and a nice even trade back and forth. Of course, both teams are, you know, losing durability on their helmets, their vest, but still, I'd rather do that and, you know, just have some fun, shoot your guns a little bit, than just sit behind the window and just not do anything.
Exactly, because sometimes that's I get there's a time and a place for it, but sometimes it's too often. pulled out that kind of do nothing, don't make any kind of noise. Part of, you know, there's a great strategy behind making noise because you're puffing up your chest. You're suppressing teams around you as the next circle pops up and it goes up north, continuing towards the Chumacera location.
Dead center is Chumacera. Big still holding a rather big split. I think this one they need to condense just a little bit, but I wouldn't mind if they continue to hold this and then adjust as the enemies come in, right? Because you never know. Maybe one player can scare off an entire team because the team just isn't aware of how teams are positioned.
Yeah, that's very true indeed. Red Moon, they're gonna have to pull into the circle as members of Greek Army, a player down, take a fight against Showdown. It's on the hillside that's further away from the circle, so a quick fight is gonna have to come out. Fortunately, switches on over just as one of the members of Greek Army gets knocked down, so they're left with just two. Bit of a back-end support should allow Craig to possibly do something, but he is on his own for the time being. Gets one knock, goes for the drop shot, takes a bit of damage and gets it onto Malik with the mini.
Ooh, Glor playing extremely well right here, representing Slovakia. This one player definitely knows the timings, the pressure, how to keep it up. And oh, he's about to 1v3 this. He doesn't need the support of his teammate in the back. He's feeling himself, shooting beneath the bus with that UMP. Quick peeks back and forth. He knew he had the advantage too earlier after lighting that player up and just switches to the mini. Not even worried about not having an automatic, and he takes down two players. 1v1. His teammate in the back is able to get the revive due to the amount of pressure Freak is putting out. And this player, Glor, Freak, is that his name? I think it does spell out Freak. Yeah. Either way, that guy popped off.
Absolutely spot on. Apologies, I got the team name wrong. I just presumed it was Greek Army, and that's what I went with. But indeed, Glor coming out with the gore. Monumental play indeed as the 100. Like I said, as a two-man team, they're going to be surrounded by the members of Chazmak. Icy gets knocked out. He sets up, makes a bit of noise, and that's going to be the end of him. He pays the price. Shadowwen finds a final kill.
Chazmak Gaming on your screen right here, breaching their way into the circle. As the circle is about to shift to the next one, they're getting their info, seeing what's a potential play option possibility, you know, scouting it out right now. So they're looking okay. But the next circle does come on up, and you see right there on the top right of your screen, oh, even better view, it is dead into the heart of Chumacera, and Big still holding an extremely big split. Like I said, I think it's always better to attempt the splits, and then if something bad is about to happen, you readjust it and, you know, play accordingly. So Big continuing the split, and it's paying off because now they have the entirety of Chumacera to themselves because they did not allow any teams to breach on in.
This is crazy. It's the last thing I was expecting, and the bigger variable that comes into play is you have the low ground of Chumacera and the high ground of Chumacera in play, right? So that is just obviously the lesser of the circle is the lower ground of four Romanian men being picked apart one by one at the hands of Big. He said to me before the game 2 that something big was coming. I ribbed them a little bit and I said to LMV, stop carrying the German community so much. Big need to do something, and they are doing it. They've taken down another squad.
Yeah, so Big, a very aggressive team, but you can see right there, they also are very confident in playing aggressively defensive, right? When you play big splits like that, in a sense, you're playing defensive, but also you're ready to play aggressive. Because why play a big split if the second you hear a gunshot, you just run away, right? Big did not do that. They took the fight over. And Game Lord's down to 2 with a nice opening onto Mega Power with that beautiful grenade.
Spicy. Lives up to his name with a spicy nade, and out through the door. He comes in, switches over to gun, just in time! Gets the second knock! Look for the third! Oh my lord, this is wonderful! Somewhat solo play by Spicy of Game Lord. Mega Powers being ripped apart one by one. Just one player left for the Italian side.
Bow down right now to Spicy. It's in his name, Game Lord, and he is the Lord of Mega Power right now. This is about to be a 1v4 if he can finish it off. This is going to be a 1v4 if he can finish it off right here. He's got some more grenades. He's looking for another opening. Amazingly well done. His reaction speed. The player popped through the door, had a grenade in his hand, was able to switch guns and take him out, and then a turnaround drop shot onto the third. Spicy, looking extremely spicy, like you said, Imperium.
Oh my god. PUBG said the Italian side of Mega Power, they're actually representing the Nordic community. This PUBG Mobile European Community Tournament. Game Lord, though, Spicy's gonna have another team to contend with that's made their way across into the northern edge of the circle. That's 7 up. The next shift comes through, and it's dead on 50-50 between the massive high ground and the low ground of Chumasera.
Yeah. Eastern Stars right there getting shot at by Big. Big did lose 2 of their members playing those splits, but they managed 8 kills and they have a really good position in the late game. So I want to say, like, it's worth it to play that split and lose some players here and there. Eastern Stars in the distance right there, taking a fight with Red Moon, a team that didn't get too much of a spotlight so far, but fighting against Eastern Stars, can they make a bigger name of themselves in this match? Doesn't look like it. Red Moon just down to 1 player. Eastern Stars with only 1 knocked and about to get revived.
I know it's not much, but I appreciate that little bit of a simple confirm the kill. Don't worry too much about going for the revive. His teammate did have it in the end, and now the focus turns around towards Big and what they're going to be able to do to stop Eastern Stars from entering the edge of the circle, playing on towards the kind of lower part of the high ground. The members of Eastern Stars able to stave their way in and move into the western edge of the circle. Swave on top of the water tower, trying to grab the elevated position. He's one of 2 big players remaining in this game. As Spicy of Game Lord strives to survive as the last player up for the French side. Red Moon still going on as Ed is the last player up.
And we do have another circle shift. You can barely see it, but it is still split between high ground and low ground, Imperium. You called it out 4 circles ago. That dynamic of high ground and low ground, well, it is still in play. Big on the high ground, the highest of high ground right now. This water tower, Suave, can he make good use of it? Can he whittle down the side of Eastern Stars? Because that's their biggest threat. I believe that's a 3 or 4 man team still alive right there.
The thing is, how much of that low ground is really controllable? How much is it in play? Are you better off trying to traverse up onto the high ground and take control? We'll have to wait and see as Fella does connect on the Chazmak. I believe that's all of them going down at the hands of Fella. Look at that! Chazmak! They got absolutely taken out. The French side. One of the French side going to be taken out. A little bit of revenge from the Nordic team, of course, as Spicy of the second French community team, Game Lord, is still surviving. 7 up is in front of him.
It's amazing to see Spicy still alive, and I think our camera person, you know, he's a little bit of a fan of Spicy now after we saw what he just did. Can he make it further into this? And there you go. There's that jumping punch thing that we talked about earlier, and this time it really comes into play. Because if he runs the whole way through, those audio cues are being let out, and I think he realizes he needs to take a fight, though. But Big from the high ground picks that one up, and Suave, 1-man army, keeping back the entirety of Eastern Stars, playing his position extremely well. Look at the teamwork. Beast farming the kills on the low ground, trusting Suave to use his advantageous position to hold back a 1v3, and he's managed to take down 2 of Eastern Stars, now a 1v1. I want to see them group up into a 2v1, wipe this player out, and then farm the rest of the kills on the low ground. 13 kills, by the way, Imperium, for this big team.
Big eliminations from the German side. I think you're dead right. So I should be saying to Beast, hey, I need your support. There's 1 player that's hugging the side of this water tower. It's not worth me pushing it on my own. East, I think, has an idea that there's still 1 or 2 players inside the buildings, either just in the blue or just outside of the blue. Either way, they're biding their time, and I also respect that, because maybe they want to confirm one side before they push the other. And indeed, the circle, the blue zone, is starting to push in. Athis will have to move away. He will have to expose his position as Swave. Looks to be held down. There you go. In through the cracks of the stairwell, the final elimination comes through, and it's big on top for game 2.
I am actually really happy Big won that game because for all of entirety of yesterday and today in that first match, we were paying attention to Big because they always get into those fights. And you harped on them, Imperium. You harped on them in that very first game, and for good reason. I will have to agree. That push was extremely messy. I didn't like it either. But Big is sticking true to their guns, right? They're sticking true to developing and polishing their style. And to see them get this chicken dinner, you know, continuing to play split, continuing to play aggressive, it really, you know, warms my heart to see them get a chicken because that's just hard work being paid off right there.
Look. You're welcome, Big. You're welcome. I challenged them at the end of the first game and said, you're getting carried by LMV. What are you doing? Do something. You know, I baited him. I poked the bear, and the bear got angry, right? Very well played by Big with that chicken dinner. That split worked out. I wasn't expecting a Chumacera finish, of course. I think that was a little bit of a surprise, and I don't hold it against a lot of teams because it was quite tricky. But Big closed it out. A second place though for Eastern Stars off the back of a chicken dinner, 2 games alone. I can only imagine how many points they've gathered for their community. Massive plays from Eastern Stars.
And they needed it too, the Romania community, right? For Romania men, a good team, don't get me wrong, but they didn't have the best of starts. And, you know, when we're questioning best of starts, I mean, the Eastern Stars, a very good start. A chicken and then a second place. Like, that is very, very consistent. As far as points per game go, I'm pretty sure they have the highest average already.
Yeah, so if you take, like, that's a minimum of kind of 25 points in placement points. They didn't have as many eliminations in that second game, but you could argue there's a minimum of kind of like 15 eliminations between the 2 games. So that's a good 40 points in 2 games. That's an average of about 20 points per game when their Romanian compatriots yesterday got a total of 22 points. That's nearly an automatic double boost in only 2 games for the Romanian community. So, hey, you're kind of living up to your prediction that Romania are going to come out on top. It's still a big battle to face because Big finding their form, Game Lord Spicy pulling out a decent result. They already have a good lead. We're not seeing much from the Spanish community this game, and you could argue United Kingdom are having a bit of a floppy day so far. But yeah, that challenge is still going to be there for Eastern Stars and the Romanian community.
Yeah, so France, you know, Game Lord really stepping up. Germany out of Big and LMV, they're starting to, you know, run on full power. And then you got the Eastern Stars coming in today for Romania. So I think these 3 communities are definitely dueling it out. And I just want to point out, you know, Big, that split they did, I touched on it a little bit during the game, right? They lost 2 players going into the late game. And traditionally, usually, the argument is always, imagine if you could keep 4 players alive. How easier would it be to close out the game? But in some games, those 2 players you sacrifice towards the end of the late stage of the game, those sacrifices are worth it because you hurt and whittle down the edges of your circle so much that even with 2 players, you saw right there, once Suave got a good position, that one player can really clean up an entire team by themselves. Whereas if they coaled up together as a 4-man team, they didn't keep those splits. There could be another 4-man team that comes in on their side and kind of just spearheads them. But because they played so split up, they kept up that buffer area, right? That pressure point, forcing a lot of these teams to fight one another and weaken each other down enough that even as a 2-man team of Big, they could close it out and get the chicken dinner. So I think it was really well done by them.
That's fair, and I definitely agree. A little bit of a devil's advocate counterpoint to that. Even though it's something that you definitely can't control. I think, even though I'm not exactly sure what point in the game they lost their 2 players, the ending circle shifts, I think, massively benefited the 2 remaining players.
Yeah,
because, like I was saying, the circle's kind of shifting continually towards Chumasera and the high ground
Hmm.
was to me a bit of a big surprise. It's not too common in Miramar, really. Like, and when you're realistically wanting, and you should be wanting to play the percentage game in terms of
Hmm.
how you position. Okay, what's the percentage of the circle ending in our direction or shifting not in this direction? Okay, let's go here because it's a higher percentage of the next circle shift
Hmm.
going. I think that did play into Big's advantage as a duo. As a
Yes.
duo, at least. Eh, However, they took risks. They did take risks.
Hmm.
Swave was on top of that water tower. He needed to have some pretty big balls to hold on to that water tower on his own.
Yeah. Yeah.
One misstep and he would have got knocked. And because Beast was covering the lower ground,
Yeah.
that support was less likely going to be there. So yeah, a little bit of a devil's advocate, but I do recognize your point,
Hmm.
and adding on top of it with the big balls play from Swave. Just a
Hmm.
well closed out chicken dinner from Big.
Yeah. So, I mean, to make my point more simplified, you can imagine it this way. You can have four players hold up together, and another four-man team comes in and you take a
Yeah,
4v4.
yeah,
Or you could take one player, put them in such a tricky situation for the opposing team to deal with that that one player will die, but it will slow down those four enemy players to a point where
exactly,
by the time they
exactly.
try and take the fight to you, they're coming in from the blue, they're hurt, they're put in a bad situation. So that's an easy 3v4 versus you keep four players alive and they come in strong on a 4v4 and you could potentially lose out that fight, right? So a lot of nuances to go there, but either way, so many different ways to play this game, and it all comes down to your teamwork and the player's individual skill. And of course, the more polished that is, the more possibilities of closing games out in different, more effective and optimized ways.
Yeah, indeed, indeed. A team that I think maybe got a little bit kicked with the circle shift was the side of Mega Power, just a
Mhm.
little bit, because when that circle shifted down south away from that northern side of
Yeah.
Chumasera, it did make it a little bit harder. I would argue they went for the short term successful rotation, long term more painful rotation to go deeper
Mhm.
down into the south of Chumasera. But overall, I still think it was a half decent game for Mega Power as well.
Hmm. Definitely a decent game. And taking a look at the rankings, the match rankings, Big, of course, coming in huge with that 29-point total. Eastern Stars, we saw them, second place finish, 18 total points. Mega Power, hey, they had a very difficult, circle shift. They came into that city. They had an exit strategy, but the circle shifted in a way where it did kind of make it difficult for them, but still closing it out in third for the match ranking with 16 points, Imperium.
Good consistency for Mega Power representing the Nordic region. That's 18 and 16. That's 34 points in 2 games. You can't discredit that at all, like massively at all. And I said that United Kingdom was having a little bit of a shakier start, to give props to the two UK side.
Hmm.
7 points in the second game. The 100 got 13 points in the first game. Showdown Gaming are starting to come into their own. They got 3 points in the first game, followed by 4 points when we looked at yesterday, and they got 0 points in the first 3 games. It's a big improvement from the UK side. But I have to highlight once again Eastern Stars, because they got 32 points in the first game and 18 points in the second game. That's
Hmm.
50 points in 2 games.
50
50.
points. 50 points in
50.
2 games. All I can think about is they can hit 100 in a day off of four
Yeah.
games, right? Like it's definitely, I mean, if any team could do it, it is Eastern Stars. This is a PMGC level team, the highest tier tournament of the entire year, and they were there competing at the PMGC. So, like, I had a question, coming into these lower tier lobbies, will the difference of how these other teams play throw them off? Or will they stick true to their game plan and just execute what they
Yeah.
know best? And well, they're doing exactly just that. At least in the two matches so far, they're sticking to what they know and they're definitely executing it. And they're not, just bowing down to the unpredictability of some of these other teams.
Yeah, for sure. There's just so much to kind of, continue to break down because, when you're talking about the different, the two community teams coming together in Germany as well, with Big getting 29 points. LMV, although it wasn't the best game in the world, they still got 6 points. So it does add to the total for the German community's tally. So it's amazing. So such an interesting format, and I love seeing it unfold right in front of our eyes. But we do have to go to a break. We have two more games to go. One on Sanhok and another on Erangel. Don't go away. Highlights are coming up, and we see you guys in a couple of minutes. Welcome back to the PUBG Mobile Europe Community Tournament 2022. My name is Imperium. I'm with the wonderful, amazing, glorious Zute. He has gone to get some water, but you can say, if he asks, that I did add to my verbiage in describing the man, the myth, the legend that is Zute. We're going on to the a dodgy map of Sanhok, you could say. It's a decent playing pass spread as the teams are going to be landing and making their way down. It seems like there's a bit of a Camp Charlie hot drop between two teams at least. Poor man's boot camp, I call it, as the action's starting to unfold right off the bat. Initially, kills being laid down to the ground uncalled. I believe going to be going up against 7up in this Camp Charlie fight to kick things off. Uncanny, sorry, not uncalled. Uncanny, my apologies. Papa with the UMP. No helmet, no vest, but he gets a knock.
Is it just me, Imperium, or is there more than 8 players here fighting? Is this 3 teams?
Sweet Mary, this is 3 teams. I thought it was just 2, but well noticed. God damn it.
Yeah, 3. There's 3 teams. Like the color, two of the team colors obviously kind of blending in with one another. But I was counting the amount of health bars. I was like, wait a second. This looks way more complex than a typical 4v4. Yeah, that's 3 teams and Camp Charlie of all places, right? I mean, I don't know if Camp Charlie was this hot, but it is indeed 7up involved in this fight, along with the 2 other teams.
It was big and uncanny.
Okay, all right. Well, I mean, 7up definitely not getting the short end of the stick. Down to 2 players. They only managed to pick up 1 kill. And we see in the kill feed, LMV and BRV also getting into the fight. That's Bravis and LMV representing Germany getting into fight. So Sanhok, we saw this yesterday. There were hot drops in Paradise, Painan, and Boot Camp. For whatever reason this time around, we got 3 teams dropping in Camp Charlie.
And this is, firstly, the team to come out on top. Definitely, coincidentally, is big. Wouldn't have it any other way. However, this isn't where big normally, at least in 2021, landed. I know the playing path was a little bit to the east, but they normally go to Camp Alpha, the western side of kind of the Northwest Island Camp Alpha spread. So this is a different drop spot. So I do understand if the likes of Uncanny and 7up kind of, got a little bit caught out, not only by themselves, but the fact that a 3rd team dropped with them. I wouldn't have expected it to be big if I were them.
Yeah, so the playing path typically doesn't matter too much on Sanhok, but you can see here sometimes it does have an impact. This map is small. Yes, if you really, really wanted to, you could still fly over to whatever area off drop, but it does have an impact this time around as LMV losing another player to Bravis right here. So LMV definitely not having a good start. It seems like they were doing some sort of split drop and BRV contested them, and now they're down 2 players.
They did. Well, and again, to kind of... Okay, so to defend LMV, Bravis weren't playing yesterday. You weren't expecting it. However, to kind of criticize LMV, to bring a point that I brought into yesterday's Miramar game, it was, when you're facing teams in a lobby that you're not massively familiar with, split drops have a big risk, especially in Sanhok, right, when the map is so small. So that's a criticism for LMV, whereas maybe they should have dropped just a little bit tighter to keep it safer. In the end, they go down.
You saw that 1v1 push earlier, right? Up the hillside, up the rock. He pushed from the right-hand side. It's natural for players to do that nowadays without even maybe realizing why. And for the viewers, there's a reason why, when you see a player take a 1v1 and push up, they're always pushing from the right-hand side. Maybe we'll see it here too. Yeah. And see, look, he was pushing from the left, and now he goes over to the right side. And once again, 1v1, the right side comes out victorious. It's you don't notice it, but it is there all the time, constantly on your screen.
However, the second you see it, you can't not notice it, right? You can't unsee it. You'll always look for it. And I love the fact that you keep on pointing out, because it is something that players need to look out for when they are playing themselves. And of course, if they're watching a game and they're trying to, look at why a team isn't winning a team fight. So I love the fact that you continue to point it out. But for Romanian men looking to maybe get an opportunistic fight onto Bravis, only really starting to recover in the win against LMV earlier on, so they're going to be not only underlooted but potentially lacking on healing as well.
And the angle from 4 Romanian men comes into play there. That player thought he was safe in the building, and then he gets shot from a completely different angle through the window. And now it's a 4v3 situation of 4 Romanian men. They are going to press this in. They are not scared to take this fight, especially after knocking one player, and one player completely isolated from the rest of the team, so he cannot get revived.
They're chucking a nade. I continue to suppress the members of Bravos, put them into a corner. The elusive words of Dirty Dancing. Nobody puts baby in a corner. See if Bravos can turn something around, as they do have the walls of the building and a couple of windows where they're able to peek out, get a couple of shots. And the one thing I worry about for Romanian men is that they could be playing a little bit too close or relying too much on the walls around those buildings. You gotta be careful. It's at risk of the nades. However, they seem to have this under control. Bravos down to just 2 shots coming out from Spyro. Already gonna have the support of his teammate Breaker just yet. Switches over to the UMP, tries to find a bit of a better angle. Might attempt to jump out the window as Breaker switches over to the Vector.
4v2 situation now. This should be 4 Romanian men fight without any casualties. And yeah, just like that, they pick up the last 2. 4 Romanian men. So it's interesting, right? They've been struggling pretty much all of yesterday and most of today. But seeing them take that fight, it's like that was a very clean fight, very well played. They had one player on the off angle, the three others, putting the pressure up front. I think this is a team that, from past experience that I've seen, it's a really strong team. I wonder why they've been having so much trouble to really, start and pick things up.
Well, I think it's genuinely because it's a bit of a mix of 4 Romanian men and 4 Romanian boys together, and that's going to take a little bit of time to find that synergy, to find that gel, and to find their feet. Plus, when we look back in 2021, at least the 2021 4 Romanian boys did have a higher level of inconsistency compared to other Western European teams. So I'm kind of not really surprised that they're having some ups and downs in this community tournament so far. It adds up in a logical way for me, at least. But indeed, good to see that opportunistic fight come out. They eliminate Bravos, and instantly, 8.5 minutes in, 14 teams, 47 players left alive.
Yeah, so it's cool that you mentioned, right? It's a mix of players. I'm guessing it's like a 2-2 mix, if I'm not mistaken. You might know a little bit more.
Yeah, essentially, yes.
Okay, so it's cool that you bring up it's a 2-2 mix, because on the Eastern Star sides, the Romanian counterparts, right? They also brought in, new blood, but it's just one player, and so that synergy can mesh a lot more quickly. And Eastern Stars right out the gate performing very strong, whereas 4 Romanian men, you mix in 2 new players, and yeah, the synergy does come into question. So they are having a little bit of a slower start there. Of course, Eastern Stars more experienced overall, but you can see that difference. So I love the fact that you pointed that out, and that you have the knowledge to be able to point that out.
Also, to add a little bit of irony to it, the one player that Eastern Stars added to roster, Doran, is formerly a 4 Romanian boys. Just to kind of add even more to that.
Okay.
However, this game is continuing on. Phase 1 is starting to close in, and we're getting very close to phase number 2. A lot of teams in the central part of the circle, but all on the mainland. So if we see a massive shift to the west on either the northwest or the southwest island, we're going to have to see some pretty big rotations from the teams in the mainland.
We see another team making a push here. The circle hasn't even shifted yet, but I like the aggression because the side that they're trying to fight for is definitely the advantageous side. So they want to take that position over. They're using like a spearhead maneuver here. Golden right now in kind of a bigger split. Once they realize, you know, this team is not giving up, they should readjust a little bit to bolster this defense. A beautiful grenade raining through, but there's actually no one in that shack. Always a good procedure, though, to clear through these buildings, to clear through these shacks.
However, I would argue that Showdown shouldn't actually be taking this fight. Phase 2's popped up. They are in a prime opportunity to move across to the north over the road onto that northern hill and focus on teams coming from that northeast side, whereas if they start to engage this fight, they'll notably take a little bit too long. They could get third party. This is Sanhok after all.
That is true. On any other map, it's usually not so big of a problem, but Sanhok, yeah, there's that time, you know, just dialing down. The second the circle shifts, that's another team getting closer to your backside. But it looks like Showdown is still committing. And you do see the side of Golden. They have readjusted fully. They've stacked 4 players on top of that point now. And we got 7 up in a 1v1 way out in the blue. I think both players looking for, you know, first aid kits to employ a med strat because they're down so many members. But let's see who ends up on top for this one.
Yeah, I don't know what Pazzy is doing realistically, but yeah, he's having that little bit of a cheeky 1v1 down on the very southeastern side. Lovely nade for Showdown as they're sticking to their guns. They've opened that forbidden door, gotten 1 knock, confirmed another knock into a kill. They put Golden Esports down to just 2 players as Marcio looks to try and pull off a first aid. Unfortunately, he steps out, doesn't pull it off, and is gonna go down. And revive was at least played out, so Golden Esports still left with 2 players. But at the end of the day, Showdown are able to push further up the hill and continue to fight. But Louis with the double knock on the Showdown.
Constantly getting shot in the side too by a third party, but that double knock with that grenade was almost a triple. Another player going down to 1 HP. He does get that first aid off. Now Showdown's got to slow down a little bit, maybe go for that full reset, especially since Golden just got third party, so they're able to do that. But I see what you're saying. I see what you're looking at. That's another grenade. Flies just a little bit too far. I think they're gonna press the advantage now. They know they don't have much to work with, and that double knock was their biggest chance at securing this fight.
They're going on a split do or die in a 1v2. Louis spreads around. He has the right side advantage. He takes the right side advantage. Gets 1. Confirms a kill. Tries to. However, in the end, he doesn't survive. He goes down, and that is Golden Esports eliminated.
Golden Esports. I like the spread that they had, and then they clumped up a little bit too close together, and I think just other teams had sightlines, and ultimately that spot was taken over. So the spearhead move did work out. Luckily for them, they did not get third party. I will say, I think in a higher skill lobby, another team would have heard those shots from some sort of distance, and they definitely would have peeked their heads over to try and take advantage of a fight happening. So in this lobby, it works out. But you do have to keep in mind, does the same strategy work in higher tier lobbies? As Game Lords kind of getting battered down right here from distance. They do lose 1 player, and they're able to keep 3 up still.
But I gotta give props to Showdown because they committed to it. They knew what they wanted to do, and compared to the previous game where it took them 9 minutes to close out the fight against Bravos, this was a much quicker execution. And it allows them to be in the center of this next shift as it does close in. You have Red Moon down on the south side. They're going to have to deal with the likes of Game Lord, most notably in the northern edge of Quarry, big on that eastern edge of the phase 3.
Yeah, so being heavily rewarded for taking that fight. Now they have a dead center position. Of course, if it shifts north of that road, they are pretty much done for. This is the way that zone works. The north road and then the south road. It could go either way. It looks like it's a pretty much 50-50 split. As for these other teams, though, that are far away from the circle shift, they're in for much scrappier rotations and much scrappier fights, and that's just the way of Sanhok. And if anything we saw yesterday, Game Lord, I believe it was Game Lord, they came out of nowhere on Sanhok and just took the win right before we can even notice what was going on, and they took the win with, I believe, 16, 17 eliminations.
Was indeed the game that kind of really helped define Game Nord in day one. They followed that up with the second chicken dinner back-to-back. Will they repeat it this time around? I don't think it's going to be the case. They're in a little bit more of a precarious position, and teams around them, such as Eastern Stars, big, still very heavily within this game. It's going to be a little bit tougher for the French side. However, a lot of blue zone damage being taken by Eastern Stars. Not so many meds they have to play with, but they made it into the edge of the circle.
You know, I'm really curious to see if they've already passed all their meds to one player, right? They're coming in so late from the blue. They had cars. We saw Bazzi in a like 1v1 in a random area, and I said he's probably looking for meds. And we skipped over 2 of the players of Eastern Stars. Both of the players had 1 first aid kit, so that might not be by coincidence. They might have passed all their extra ones to a singular player already. So maybe we could see on the later stages of the game, as they are so far on the edge of the zone, they could be a team that employs the mad strat. And given the fact they're a PMGC team, I think every team at the PMGC level, when Sanhok comes into play, they always have that backup ready, the med strat.
One team that I think has an extremely valuable position, however, possibly a stronger spread could work out just a little bit more to their advantage, is the side of Glore on the northern side, just south of Paradise Resort. Open around them, nobody's there. I know they don't know that, so I understand why they're sticking together, but if you don't dip your toes in the water, you're not going to know what temperature it is to have a swim in, right? And now with that massive shift down south, they haven't really given themselves any kind of foundation of information to go on, so they're walking quite blindly into this next circle.
Yeah, take a look at Bazzi right there.
Oh,
yep.
What? What?
I
in
was
the
saying.
blue blazing hell?
I was
38
saying.
first aids.
Exactly.
Jesus.
I see each member of Eastern Stars have 1 first aid kit, and I'm instantly like, that's too coincidental for such a top level team.
It? Yeah.
And I knew immediately. I think they've already passed off all the first aids to a player, and they indeed have 38 first aid kits. Like, sure, this is a community tournament. This isn't PMGC or anything, but I love it because they're practicing this strat to prepare for the next PMGC. And we saw Enigma Galaxy out of PMGC. I believe, I can't remember off the top of my head. They finished in 4th place, maybe? Imperium?
No, they finished in 3rd, mate.
Third. Okay, 3rd place.
Come on, give them credit. Top 3.
Okay. 3rd place Enigma Galaxy with one of the lowest kills to, placement point.
41, I think 41 eliminations.
Yeah.
Comparative to their placement points.
But they just know how to get the placement points. And on Sanhok, they got 2nd place through med stratting so often, so consistently. So Eastern Stars taking a page out of that, I don't knock them at all for it. I actually really love to see that.
This is what I talked about with Glore, but credit where it's due. I think I'm not always for a bold push into the center part of the circle, but sometimes it can work out. It has, because they've done it together, and they're able to get the advantage on the game, or just robs the last player standing as Spicy goes down. A revive might be able to get pulled out. I think that's going to be the case, but I'm a little bit surprised Glore isn't pushing that further.
Save Spicy. If you need any player last alive on your team outside of this team of Game War, we've seen Spicy be able to do it. So get that revive and keep them up and alive. Oh, actually, just as I say that, I think Robs is like, no, Spicy, this is my time to shine. I'm gonna leave. Okay, well, Caster Curse. Zute, just stop right there. Imperium, you can take it over.
Zute strikes again, ladies and gentlemen. The Caster Curse is strong in this one. Big. Up to 4 eliminations. Chazmac Gaming coming out from the blue. These for Focus get the spray off. He's normally known for his close quarter combat shenanigans, but from that further range with the 4X, pulls out a devastating blow onto the side of Glore. DeVito is going to be absolutely taken down, and they have to turn their attentions on towards the members of Big Face 5 has popped up. It's centralized a little bit. Both of these teams now outside of the circle.
Ooh, Azar thought he was in a safe position with that smoke and that cover, but some player from distance gets a clean knock on him. Now it's just down to Pocus and Shadowwind. Team CMG Chasmot Gaming still not fully in the zone, and this is where Sanhok gets extremely difficult. Both teams not in zone. Both teams just playing in from the edge of blue, slowly but surely, trying to take shots at each other to work their way in.
Don't get knocked, Shadowwind. Don't overexpose yourself. I know the blue zone is taking you down. Play rock to rock. That's good movement from Shadowwind. The revive is unfortunately not able to be played out onto Azar. So it is just 2 players that are left up for Chasmac. Showdown. Still together as a full squad. They have had this circle since phase 3, I do believe. And now they have to deal with both Mega Power and Chasmac.
Another team that's been really quiet, but it's because they just got the circle and they got those buildings is Red Moon. 4 players alive, just hearing gunshots all around them. Let's see what they can do in the late game once the teams around them finish their fights. Maybe there's not going to be a 4-man team left standing. I see Mega Power with 4. I see Showdown right there with also 4 players, and that circle shift actually is going to work in huge favor for Red Moon.
Eastern Stars, Athos and Doran are still alive, plus Bazzi healing in the blue. We know how many first aids he had. Mega Powers able to at least start the fight on the Showdown. Red Moon, to highlight them in Sanhok, I remember back in the PMCO full split, they were pretty good on Sanhok, and in yesterday's Sanhok game, they got 14 points. So this is obviously a pretty strong map for them.
This fight will be a fight to the death as both teams will vie for the same position in that next circle shift. So you see Showdown, even though they're at a disadvantage, they're pressing straight into Mega Power. They know they have to eliminate that team to go any further. It's down to 2. AU getting revived by Remix right here. And Mega Power now getting shot at by the other teams in the zone trying to work their way in. And this is the beauty of Sanhok. It is just a grueling grind in the late game.
I love the fact that he got the revive, but AU in no way went for the heal because he's like, look, the best thing is I can do is throw a couple of bullets, hope that I can back up my teammate. Unfortunately, it doesn't work out, but they did pick up a bit of a cheeky kill. 5 teams left. Big 9 eliminations, nearly on double digits once again. As Swave is knocked down, Beast and Mazzaro, the 2 incredibly talented firecracker players of this side. Let's see if they can add more to their tally.
Big does manage to sneak into zone. The next circle comes up, and it does favor Big and Mega Power. Mega Power down to 3 players, so they did lose 1 player in that grueling grind into the circle. Red Moon, of course, with still 4 alive, but now it's Red Moon's turn to push into Mega Power. One of Mega Power gets knocked. That's huge. We have Team 100 still alive in the mix, and oh, Bazzi only down to first aid kits. Top 4, I believe, is what he can secure. Maybe a top 3. He's got to survive a few more seconds in this circle. You see that timer. That timer, 3, 2, 1. That's going to push Red Moon out of the zone. And let's see how long Red Moon can survive now.
Coca, Al-Jab, 2 Italian players are left up for the Italian side, representing the Italian community. Coincidental? I think not. Rite onto Ed, Rite onto Al-Jab. That's Red Moon going to be eliminated. We're down to our top 3, and Eastern Stars secure a podium position. That's 3 games. Top 3? You can't argue with that from Eastern Stars.
Yeah, definitely not. But who's going to take top 1? Who's going to take top 2? Big in a 2v3 situation now. Mega Power with that advantage. Oh, he's even using that bandage. You see that in that small screen. He's trying to do whatever he can to stay alive. But a top 3 finish, definitely not bad, especially a map like Sanhok. We saw Enigma Galaxy get top 2 pretty much every Sanhok game. Hey, top 3, you're 1 placement short, but definitely nothing to be sad about. So, Mega Power versus Big. I love the spread out of Big. They know they're at a man disadvantage, so they're going to angle out and spread out.
Push, push, push. Pieces created a distraction. Now, Mazzaro, you need to drive forward. Absolutely drive forward. Wonderful move by the Angle player, a big beast, plays it on through. Mazzaro takes a hell of a lot of damage.
Beast gets another one.
Distraction and played out. A second knock. It's a 1v2. Why did you go for the first aid? Mazzaro, you've left it into a 1v1. Beast has the advantage. Is he going to go for the right-hand move? Is he going to play on the right-hand side of this tree? He does have control of the circle. However, he cannot allow Lodges to go for a revive. He recognizes that's going to be the case. Switches over to the UMP, and he's going to lose the 1v1. Mega power. Secure the Sanhok chicken dinner.
Oh, absolutely beautiful out of Mega Power, maintaining their positioning, and of course that 1v1 was huge for them. And then big, I would have to say, I love how they spread out. I love how they took a 1-1 split. They know that it's a 2v3 situation, and they group up together. Yeah, they could get the trade, but when you get a trade at a man at a disadvantage, you just lose. So that split almost got the win. And yes, Mazzaro, I feel like Mazzaro slept up a little bit. I think he probably thought he had that first A, but instead, in hindsight, he should push out, cause a distraction, just go ahead and get knocked, and let Beast do the follow-up. Of course, next time, maybe that will be their plan after they review that and polish it up. But Mega Power, a team that's been, pretty up there, so showing solid, performances here and there. And now it's great to see they get a chicken dinner under their belt on the map of Sanhok.
It's been a great couple of games for Mega Power. 16 points they got in game number 2 in Miramar. They get a chicken dinner in this game. In the first game, they got 18 points. So it's been a little bit similar to Eastern Stars. 3 games, top 3. That consistency is absolutely perfect. It's what we really look for in the highest level of competition. Sometimes it's harder because as competition gets higher, the volatility, the kind of punishment for mistakes is more easily exposed in that regard. But for the time being, you really can't fault what Mega Power are doing, especially considering they are realistically a PMCO level team going up against not only PMPL but PMGC teams in the form of Big and Eastern Star. So that does show what this team is made of when you look towards the whole of the 2022 season.
And this is our 3rd game into day number 2, and I'm already loving the way this tournament is developing. The first day, there's always inconsistencies. You don't know which team is going to do what. You don't know what teams, will really shine through in the lobby. But now we already see like maybe 4 or 5 teams, names that are just constantly all the way up there, constantly doing big things. Sure, they might drop a game here or there, but instantly in the next game, they're back. So I think we're starting to see, what teams to look out for. And as for the teams competing, well, they know what teams to, study for during their VOD reviews now too.
Yeah, exactly. However, in today's games, we are seeing a bit of a pattern because I don't know how it will look in terms of placement points and kill points together for the top 3, but in the second game of the day in Miramar, in first place was Big with 29 points, second place with Eastern Stars with 18 points, and Mega Power in third with 16 points. At least in placement points of this third game, top 3, the exact same. Mega Power, Big, Eastern Stars. Again, you have to factor in the elimination points that all of the teams have got, and because I think Eastern Stars had 2 elimination points, so you add that with the placement points, that's only 12 in total. So I don't know if it's 3, but my point is a pattern could be slightly emerging today of we're seeing 2 to 3 very dominant teams.
These teams are definitely doing very well. And I just want to point out, thinking back to the Eastern Stars with their med strat, right? I was trying to compare it to the way Enigma Galaxy did it. And I feel like just one thing, like just to critique, I think that Eastern Star player could have been with his team a little bit more into the late game and not have to use any meds at all, right? Because he was way far down in the south, deep in the blue from the very beginning. Whereas at the PMGC level with Enigma Galaxy, you saw the last player doing the med strat a bit closer to the end circles of the game. So they weren't too scared to risk, moving closer and closer in and delaying the usage of the meds until they absolutely had to. So Eastern
For
Stars,
sure.
like, if they're watching, hopefully, maybe they might take this as a little bit of a note on how to improve their med stratting on Sanhok.
Yeah, definitely. You can't argue with that point for sure. Man, and I really think that Sanhok game was, of course, the fact that it ended on the mainland and we didn't have the RNG factor of either island does automatically make it a lot better of a game to not only analyze but to watch. But I really think that this was one of the best games we've had so far.
Yes.
I don't know if you'd agree, but I really think like we saw Showdown step up, get a really nice fight early on, and that kind of benefited them. Then Mega Power kind of overpowered them a little bit in that regard, and we saw some great team fights from Big as well. This was, to me, a very good game.
Yeah, and usually Sanhok is one of the matches where, you know, it's a bit more haphazard and a bit more like just wherever the circle goes, you know, favors whatever team. But it's great to see, you know, some of these top level teams, you know, people complain Sanhok is not a competitive map. Yeah, it's a little bit harder to stay consistent, but we saw these three names, not just in this match, but like you pointed out, in the last match as well. And so given the fact that it's Sanhok, they just show, you know, we have the skills to make whatever situation possible, to break into the top rankings, and the consistency showed through. And it's always very extra beautiful to see on a chaotic map like Sanhok. And it just, you know, it's proof that, hey, Sanhok, there is strategy behind it. You just really need to be a well-oiled team. And those three teams that you mentioned, they definitely proved it.
Definitely. Team Bravos, the second Spanish community side, they're in the footsteps of Rexpect that got a very good 40-pointer in the first 4 games as a solo Spanish representative. It's Team Bravos on their own today. 2 points in the first game. They had 0 points in the second game. Now, they did get a squad wipe on the LMB, so they've gotten at least a couple more points. But in this upcoming 4th game, I want to see more from Team Bravos.
Yeah, well, we only got 1 match left, so let's take a look at the match rankings of the game we just played. And taking a look at this, Mega Power, of course, with 26, but the second place team, Big, they also put up a huge amount of elims, 15 elims with a total of 22 points. And then there's that big drop off. You know, Eastern Stars with their med strat does secure them 12 points, which is not too bad.
30 eliminations Big have gotten today alone, by the way. Just to put that out there. 14 in the second game, 15 in this game, and 1 elimination in the first game. That's some strong aggression from the German side. You can see where they're really looking to lay down the law in the Western Europe region for this 2022 year. But Showdown Gaming, the 100, 12 and 10 together, that kind of United Kingdom unity really showing up. And I also want to say that because, you know, we haven't really seen that in any of the games, bar I think when Chazmac and Game Lord had a good game together. So I really want to highlight that. Well done, United Kingdom, on that community representation in this game.
Yeah, so if you want to take a look at Big, right, huge 22 points. And if this was the only match that was played so far, well, Big with 22, LMB with 0. So for the community, that's 22 points. But not Eastern Star, but Showdown plus the 100, they matched that 22.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's why I think it's great to highlight the kind of the strong performance from one community team. But if the other community team isn't kind of stepping up to the plate, and this isn't any shade on LMB because they've had good games today. Yes. But my point is, in that one individual game, if both community teams aren't really kind of stepping up, it means you're kind of dragging at the heels, so to speak. And even kind of 4 Romanian men in this game, 5 points, it's not massive, but it does kind of at least, perk up the 12 points that their Romanian teammates Eastern Stars got. So that's positive indeed as we head into the final game of the day.
And one thing I want to, draw between the Miramar game and Red Moon, which I think is a perfect example as far as the end game goes, is Red Moon, right? They kept 4 players alive into the very final circle. They stayed safe in the buildings, which I think on Sanhok is a smart play, but if you think back to the Miramar game, Big played very split, lost 2 members through the process of getting into that end game, but they could secure a chicken dinner because they sacrificed their players to hurt everyone around them. Red Moon, you see it right there, only 1 elim, meaning they kept as 4 up and played very safe up to the very end. They didn't stick their heads out like Big did with any splits or more risk. And at the end of that game, even though they had the circles all the way up, they only secured 9 points, right? So to draw that parallel between when do you want to stay together versus when do you want to split up a little bit and potentially sacrifice a player or 2 to weaken everybody else in the lobby.
Exactly. Couldn't have said that better myself. As I said, we've got 1 more game to go. Before that, we're going to go to a break. You'll be able to catch the highlights. Don't go away. We'll see you guys in a bit. to the PUBG Mobile European Community Tournament. We have one more game to go with myself, Imperium, and the wonderful, fantastic, the handsome, the talented, the energizing, the analytically infused man himself, Zute.
Oh my gosh, Imperium, thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. And I'll have to do you one up tomorrow, because I don't think I can beat that right now off the top of my head. So I'm not even going to bother to try. But you know for a fact, after today, I'm going to be going through my dictionary and taking notes on how best to compliment you as a wonderful man you are.
You'll be on your plane tonight going, okay, what you'll be writing like a love letter to Imperium. It's fun, I'll allow it. So let's throw some love for all these teams that are competing. We've got one more game to go today, and I genuinely think today's games have just been that little bit more competitive, that little bit stronger. We've seen obviously adding the likes of Eastern Stars is never going to be a bad thing for the level of competitiveness, but I think overall a lot of these teams have stepped up to the plate, they've adapted, they've realized their mistakes from yesterday, and they're showing it.
Yeah, and you mentioned showing love to these teams, right? I want to give a shout out to like the teams playing, like every single one of them, regardless of how they're doing, because you gotta realize we just finished PMGC, right? And these teams, they're already back on the grind. They're already back playing these tournaments. They're not taking a break whatsoever. No. A lot of teams, you know, PMGC just finished. We just witnessed greatness. Let's, you know, just chill for a little bit, you know, analyze, study, whatever the case might be. But these guys are doing that and right back into tournament gameplay. So shout outs to these guys, keeping the grind up. And you too, Imperium, you and I both. We're both back on the grind, but we're back on the grind in the form of casting.
Yeah, I do have to admit, I took a nice little bit of a break over Christmas and New Year. You know, I needed to just reset myself. I think that's important, but indeed, we're now back onto the grind. We're into the playing path of this final game, and you couldn't ask for a better playing path in this final game. Straight down the middle, starting south, heading north.
Very clean playing path. We saw in the first game there was only one hot drop in Yas, and I think it's going to happen again, but neither of those teams fought, so they probably feel comfortable just going back there. You see two teams heading towards Yasnaya already. If it's anything like the first game, they will just, you know, loot east and west of the city. No real problems to be had there. And coming into the last game, I don't think much is going to change. I think all the teams coming into day number 2 have already warmed up and kind of developed themselves, whereas day number 1, it was a little bit more hectic from game to game.
Are we seeing the kind of Navi influence of military island drops in terms of what I observed in the PMGC finals is that Navi weren't afraid, and there was that little bit of mutual respect from, I think it was Infinity that dropped the military island as well, where Navi would take that kind of eastern side closer to the bridge. Infinity would take the military base. I can't help but think that that is the kind of influence being shown in this kind of game, where this side of Team Glore have just that kind of western side, and the mega power, although they go to Nova, it's not, they're like, yeah, okay, you stay where you are.
I mean, after every PMGC, that's just prime opportunity for so many teams to just pick whatever team that did really well, that has a very similar potential playstyle in terms of the drops, the rotations, and you can almost just copy and paste it, and improve on it yourself over time. It's like almost a cheat.
Definitely.
You know, like a cheat book, like a handbook, like, hey, we drop here, they drop here, they play really well at PMGC. Why not just study them for a little bit? So that influence could definitely be shining through. And we missed a little bit of a quick fight, I think. The 100 picked up 2 kills already, so we're down to 62 players. I think they picked up 2 kills onto Team Bravis. It might have been kind of like a split loot, hot drop type quick
Yeah.
scrap, but you see there 100 are now rotating towards Lipovka to continue looting. So 2 quick, easy points, and then they also get the loot that they want.
Yeah, Bravis getting caught out in that regard, well observed by yourself. Of course, the two teams in Yasnaya respecting each other for the time being. Showdown, we've highlighted how much they've improved. They have Pachinki all to themselves. I also observed, Zute, that Eastern Stars, they opted for Kameshiki Stalbar because even though it was a central plane path from south to north, there's that little bit of a heavier risk that if you do try to like go for that central plane path all the way over to the eastern side, that
Yes.
with a potentially smaller amount of vehicles, that you can have happen to you what happened to Bravis. You lose one or two players.
Yes.
So them adapting, I appreciate that.
Yeah, so their drop in the first game was Milta, right? But on their way to
Yeah.
Milta, like you pointed out, there could be another team dropping in that area before you reach Milta, because that farm split in between, the plane path and Milta is quite common. Teams will fly that way, and they would have to drop there for cars along with them, and they could lose players, just like you mentioned, the Bravis team losing some of those. So instead, if you go up to Stalber, well, in between the plane path and Stalber, there's literally nothing on
Exactly.
there. So there's no chance of a team dropping with you to, scrap with you potentially. So a very good adaptation and very keen eyes, Imperium. I love that you pointed that one out.
Swear I do color casting normally when I commentate. Jesus. Thank you very much though. Of course the two teams inside George Paul area, that is I believe Greek Army and Uncanny. I'm curious to see whether both go to the south side of the river. One goes to the north, one goes to the south. I think normally I would say at least one of them should go north of the river. But honestly, if any of them have any idea that big land in Severny, which they should, I wouldn't, because with how aggressive big are being, I wouldn't want to cross paths with them. So if I were both of them, I'd go for south of the river rotation through ruins, maybe straight onto Roshawk, see how they go, or maybe even wait until phase 2 pops up.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Big has a 100% engagement rate with the very first team they see in any match. Like, I don't think they've shied away from a fight at all. Like, never. Like, the very first team they see, they're like, we're committing to this, even if it's like a little bit of a riskier push. But speaking about Big, let's take a look at this circle, right? The first circle has popped up. It's a very typical circle. Even with, further shifts, I don't imagine any crazy dynamics coming through. The only one would be if it could potentially shift up north, up like all the way to Stalber. But this should be a circle where everybody can rotate easily and be familiar with, all the way up to like the late game, like circle 4, circle 5. So, I think teams will have I get the feeling we'll see a lot more teams alive towards the late game in a circle like this.
Okay. That's a good, well-calculated prediction for Romanian men. They're rotating close to Tater Hill, but not up it, which I definitely respect, because you still get a decent bit of information. I would like to have seen them stop on the way. I know they're stopping now. Maybe it's just exactly where they want to go, but I think maybe stopping halfway, or at least having a slightly divergent rotation to try and grab a little bit of crossfire information might have worked out. However, I respect they're going where they want to go, and that's it.
I mean, it's a pretty early rotation, right? 7 minutes in or so into the game. So they kind of probably realize, like, hey, we're early. There's no real, like, risk of there potentially being teams set up. And you pointed out, like, some teams, they fight 9 minutes into the first match before they can even, rotate out. So 7 minutes rotation is, on the speedier side, and they're just going straight in and taking advantage of their earlier rotation. Game Lords right here in the north. So with that circle, Game Lords does have a priority rotation if they want to take it. But sometimes when you loot the city like Yas, there's just so much loot to go by. You might end up, trapping yourself in there, picking up more loot than you might necessarily need.
yeah, you can get kind of, you just nearly get distracted with the amount of buildings and the amount of loot.
It's like
and
shopping.
Indeed, you can get trapped. Yeah, it's like shopping, yeah. Annie going up against Big. I did highlight that. I would recommend that they both go south of the river, and Canny haven't listened. And although Big aren't massively set up for a clean fight, it's Big, right? You just don't get what they can potentially do, and indeed they're pushing.
Yeah, 100% engagement rate. As far as 100% success rate, that's yet to be seen because we saw them flop the first one on Erangel. But this one's looking a little bit better. Mazzaro taking a second too long, but the off angle from Beast is already in. And they're just... This team has no idea what's happening. Uncanny is just like, where are all these players coming from? They probably feel like it's two different teams, and now Big has taken 3 players down, and only Mazzaro's knocked. And I think the fight is about to finish up very soon.
Yeah. I predicted it, right? I kind of called it, and I have to criticize Uncanny because I'm not saying a team should always kind of run away from another team, but it's phase 1. If you can avoid a fight actively from being aware of where a team lands, do it. It's common sense. So that was a big mistake from Uncanny, and I hope they learn from it in upcoming days.
Yeah. Golden right now getting a nice locked onto LMV. LMV is in a strong position, but they are kind of a bit too stacked on top of each other. And if Golden wants to take opportunity of this, you see all those angles coming in right now. One player pushing up close, but hit on with the long range sniper knock. That's going to slow things down out of Golden, and that might actually make them kind of think twice about pushing this in, because now it's a 3v4.
Oh, it is indeed. We move on over to the fight between Chazmac Gaming and the 100. France going up against UK. It's happened time and time again, whether it's football, whether it's wars, you name it. They've been against each other. They have a mutual hatred, but this time around it's in the world of PUBG Mobile. It's the Lion King Hill compound that's trying to be held down by both sides, but it does seem like Chazmac are disengaging. They recognize that they can't really get a clear entry point, so they're backing off and respecting each other.
They already lost 2 members. We just tuned into the fight when they lost 2, so I'm not sure if it was Chazmac doing a push where they lost 2, or maybe they were holding a 2-2 split potentially, and then they got pressed in. But we're on to the next one. So I predicted there's going to be more teams alive into the late game, but I might have just cast a curse that as so many of these teams maybe just feeling really warmed up and just wanting to take fights. You know, this is the 4th match, the last match of the day, and typically teams do feel a bit more comfortable to take engagements. Eastern Stars taking 1 with the likes of Team Bravis. Bravis already lost 2 very early on, so off the get-go, they're at a huge disadvantage, and that grenade is going to make that disadvantage even bigger.
Orphe left on his own out in the open. A nade flies in his direction, chunks him down a little bit. I don't know if Eastern Stars are fully aware of where he is, but a little bit of a push will get the job done as Morphe steps up, tries to do something about it, but the body power comes into play. Eastern Stars pick up 2 kills.
Yeah, Eastern Stars did lose 1 player, though, in that engagement when we tuned in, so maybe that's why they look so angry right there, hunting down the last 2 players. And now CMG, Chazmac Gaming, trying to defend a push by 100? But what's that push? Why is their players so spread out in the long distance? They knew Chazmac was here. They just finished fighting them, and now they lose 1 player unnecessarily, and they might lose another one here.
But they did get the first 2 kills, so something happened which thought they could push it without worrying about it too much, and it works out. Although they lose Will, they do get the squad wipe. I know, I get where you're coming from because it looked very, very off balance for the 100. Yes. But again, those 2 initial kills clearly gave them the confidence to push it.
Yeah, it was a push, but maybe not executed the best, right? Red Moon right there picking one up onto LMV. Very nice split by Red Moon. This is a very, I think by now, standard split. Like, it seems like a pretty big split, but we've seen this in tournaments so often that now even, the lower entry level teams like PMCO, PMPO also know how to utilize the split. So that's very beautiful to see right there.
I do worry about this split come phase 3, phase 4. I'm not a massive fan of it, but for this phase 2, yeah, props to Red Moon picking up a kill. Hidan's left in his own, and yeah, let's see how long he can survive for. I believe Showdown also got a bit of a kill onto 1 or 2 of the LMV players, so they were picked apart from both sides. You can see where phase 2 circle shifted. So hopefully we can get a bit of a perspective in that regard. The Blue Zone is already making its way in. Hidan takes a couple of shots in his direction.
Hidan doing that jiggle back and forth, try and dodge and weave some bullets there. Perek definitely not able to dodge and weave since he's already knocked down and thirsted. That's Glor losing a player right there. Maybe playing a little bit too split or just not aware of the angles as he goes down. And Golden, I think, did pick up that kill. Now Hidan just doing the best he can as a solo. And is he actually getting pressed by Showdown? I think he is. Showdown realizes this might be a solo player, so they want to pick up every kill point possible.
I like it. Gives them more control, and this is the evolution from Showdown that we wanted to see, right? Yesterday's games, they were able to kind of rotate into the first couple of circles, but they weren't doing anything after that. This time around, today, they're being a lot more aggressive with their movement.
And I love how they did not commit all 4 players. You saw 3 players push, and the other player held the compound, that safe location that they want to keep. So nice push right there. Very disciplined as far as the numberings go. And 100, well, they got another player knocked, about to bleed out. I don't think they could get this revive in time. Yeah, he's actually going to get finished. Eastern Stars only has 3, but they're very aggressive right now. And they get that one confirmed, and they're going to go for that push play, maybe.
It was also the kind of thing where it was lured into a false sense of security by Eastern Stars, where that player from the 100 up on the roof thought he had a free couple of shots, didn't look around. Kapahala got the kill. Happy days. Daddy now and Alicio, the 2 players left standing for the 100, either side trying to cover each other as the nades are being thrown out. Phase 3 pops up. Once again, we don't know where it went. For the time being, 2 to 3 teams isolated around farm.
So Eastern Stars in the first 3 games showed a nice balance of, just positioning and maintaining, splits and pressure control. This time around in the 4th game, it looks like they're just practicing their aggression and taking fights they don't necessarily have to, but that they feel comfortable in and feeling, good in their team synergy to make the win or make the best out of it. And so far, it's going well. They've only lost 1 player, picked up a few kill points or elimination points, and they might just pick up a few more right here onto the side of the 100.
13 teams, 44 players alive as we hit the 17-minute mark. Halfway through. So you're going to start closing in. The 100 turned their attention over to 4 Romanian men. It's a Romanian sandwich. It's a Romanian sandwich. Right, I feel bad for the 100.
Yeah. The second he turns away to try and get a cheeky M24 snipe, he gets shot in the back by the team pressing close. Oh, the timing couldn't have been any worse. I don't even blame him for it, right? You see a player standing still. You have the M24. You've been chilling there for a while. Eastern Stars haven't pushed you. And then you look away for a split second, and Eastern Stars shoots you in the back. So that Romanian sandwich definitely coming through. The 100, definitely not happy that they're an ingredient in it.
The recipe for disaster when you're the last player of the 100 next circle.
Oh, there we go.
We see on our screens finally it's up towards Yasnaya. That's great for Game Lord as they hold on to the southern edge of the city. 7 up in the compound and the fields of Yasnaya. Red Moon in the Alamo compound as well. Those 3 teams, in my eyes, the 3 best positions on the map.
Yeah. Red Moon, definitely a lot of spacing to work with. Strong compound, of course, and even Eastern Stars, if they could finish, or I mean, I pretty much they evicted 100 already, right? The 100,
Yeah.
they're no longer a
No.
tenant on Lion King Hill. They're like down there on the on the bottom.
Like
You see,
who's well no, it's like what's the name of the father that died in Lion King? Spoiler alert.
Simba,
No, Simba's
the main character.
baby. Yeah, the main
Okay,
character.
I forgot,
Not
but
not
oh,
not
he's taking some
oh,
shots.
I don't know. Mufasa, there you go. It's
Oh.
Mufasa. Thank you very much, production, for letting us know it's Mufasa that died. So right now, Alicio is looking like Mufasa.
Oh man, he took some shots too. So he's just being annoying right now, just letting him like, hey, I'm not happy you evicted me. I'm still here. You gotta still finish me off. But Mega Power, super great game last game on the edge of zone, having to navigate this. You see on that mini map, there's like 3 different colors. Oh, the 4 Romania min member just kind of chilling right there. I don't know
Yep.
what his game plan is, but yeah, showdown and a nice little dip, trying to gatekeep out the rest of Mega Power.
This is a great dip when you're proactive and you're controlling and you really manipulate the traffic around you. If you're not noisy enough in that dip, even though, of course, it's not in this phase 4, you can really get punished. So I really appreciate what Showdown were doing and how they were making a bit of noise. But now they have to focus on getting into this phase 4. Once again, shifting up north. Yasnaya is in play. It's a strong 50-50 split between a harsh city and the open field.
So I was saying this. Oh,
What?
Eastern Stars ripping
Buzzy?
2 players out of that. I mean, this is the difference between a PMGC level team and lower teams. Of course, PMGC teams, they have the strategy, they have the rotations, but not just that. They have the gun skills, and that's a clear view of what a PMGC level team could do when you're just rotating by them for even just a split second.
It's like, as a player, the biggest compliment you can get from a caster is being stopped kind of mid-sentence to talk about what you've just done, because you were about to kind of talk about something else and we saw that happen.
I forgot.
Like, no, we have to highlight that. Yeah, I know.
I
But it was
forgot
just
what I
like-
was going to talk about.
Exactly. So nice on Bazzy. Game Lord, of course, trying to hunker down on towards the southern edge of the Yasnaya city, push teams back left, right, and center, beat from being onto one of the members of Greek Army is the last player of Golden Esports, still trying to survive.
Oh yeah, they're sending bullets all the way down, and they got the angle. Beautiful finish out of Eastern Stars, controlling that side of the traffic really well. They're not in the zone, but hey, if you're gonna rotate past us and try and get in the zone, you better think twice, right? So beautifully done by Eastern Stars, and they essentially take out a team that will rotate into where they would most likely want to rotate into later.
Yeah, for sure. Like, Eastern Stars are making it look like easy Eastern Stars in these games, because we're looking at another elimination hungry performance from the Romanian side. Red Moon, it being in this dip for quite a while, and a little bit like Showdown were in a previous dip, they have to be proactive. With Showdown walk right into the firing line of another team, and Red Moon should be looking to capitalize on that. I think it's the members of Team Galore that do end up going down, and Showdown, they end up surviving, but they are battered, broken, scarred as the blue zone continues to push on in. Red Moon not sniffing the opportunity to strike.
That grenade definitely falling a little bit too short. I feel like Versace could have easily gauged the distance with a jump nade and probably gotten at least 1 or 2 knocks in that dip. They're so cluttered there. And the next circle has come up, and we are shifting up into the western side of Yasnaya. Wow. So talk about an interesting game end. I remember the first circle. I was saying this game should be pretty normal. Nothing too crazy could happen here. Well, if you keep the circle shifting north the entirety of the time into Yaz, well, that's going to make a very interesting game. Also big, by the way, on the western side with a big split.
This could be a 7-up chicken dinner. They have a 2-2 split. It's risky, but they're two big, important buildings that are pretty hard to breach. So I could see this being a Czech Republic Slovakian community chicken dinner for 7-Up.
Potentially. But, you know, when teams crash those buildings, they crash 4 deep. So that can also come into play. Meanwhile, Red Moon and Showdown Gaming just locked in a battle on the far edge side. You can see Versace just hustling, trying to out-angle Showdown Gaming. So I love this proactiveness. He does manage to get somewhere good. But he's got to make sure he doesn't shoot too far, though, or too long. Double knock. There we go.
Fantastic. They need to finish it off, right? Time's ticking, 15 seconds until the blue zone starts closing in. They're opting to disengage. I don't disagree with that. I would argue that you've taken away 4 kills at the non-guarantee of actually making it into the edge of circle. Either way, they're prioritizing making it into this phase 5.
Yeah, it's 50-50. They can press that, pick up the kills, and maybe take too long, and they don't have time to crash in. But they stuck with one decision, and they went fast. So I do like to see that decisiveness out of them. So they do breach on in with 4 players. You saw 1 player get knocked. We don't know how that's going to go. Meanwhile, Big on the other end, deciding to take a northern rotation, fighting into Uncanny, and Big get the better of that, picking up the kill and able to get the full reset. Red Moon here with 1 player knocked, and it is just all-out chaos. And the circle has shifted south to the southern side of the fields and the city of Yaz.
Okay, so Zute, good luck analyzing all of this. This is going to be an absolute cluster truck of madness coming into the final 5 to 6 minutes of this game. Smokes are going to be aplenty. We're going to see third parties left, right, and center. His head looks to chuck up an aid. Is going to get taken down. It's now just Redex left on his own. Don't know. The heal is going to come through, possibly as he crawls his way into the building. 7-Up still holding things down as they look to push across. Game Lord. He got the chicken dinner in the last game yesterday. Can they do it once again? Red Moon continuing to try and slave away. Just Ed knocked down. Will hopefully be able to get revived as he continually crawls into the edge of this building to get revived by Alajab.
Absolute mayhem right now. You saw Alajab throw out a Molotov because they're so worried about a push, especially given the fact that the real estate is getting less and less. I feel worse for Big, though. I'm curious to see how Big presses into this zone, because Big took a gamble. They went to the northern side. Yeah, they got an easy entry in, but now it comes down to, with 4 players alive, can they fight into that southern shift? There is one team stopping them right now. As far as I can tell, it's the Eastern Stars.
No better team to stop them, right? You know, the PMGC side of Eastern Stars is not going to be an easy wall to break. Looking at 7-Up, looking at 7-Up though, this team coordination needs to be big because 2 are inside the circle, 2 are outside the circle. They need to make a move.
And there we go, a 2v4, but that's enough for Eastern Stars given the positional advantage they have. And they stomp down a team like Big, which we can all agree is a very good fighting team. But there is the difference in caliber of level. A 2-man team of a PMGC level style or level of play of Eastern Stars can stop a 4-man team of Big.
Game Lord, 6 eliminations so far. Red Moon being pushed by 7-Up, but they are able to at least trade it out. Alajab knocked down, so is Head. Versace, who picked up 2 knocks earlier on, comes in. It's gonna get taken out by the members of 7-Up to stay alive. For Romanian men, they try to get involved, but it's not going to work out too well for them. It's phase 7 shifts down south. 3 teams left alive. 4 Romanian men, 7-Up, and Game Lord.
Game Lord right now just getting the better of all of these exchanges because no one's shooting at them and they're taking shots at everybody else. 7-Up with 3, 4 Romanian men with just 1, and Game Lord with 4. We saw Game Lord win the chicken dinner on the last match of the day yesterday. It's looking like they could close it out once again here. Game Lord seems to just be one of those teams that play better and better as the matches go on throughout the day.
said 7-Up's team communication needed to be important in the previous circle because they had 2 in, 2 out. They've come in as a 3-man team, only losing 1. I think they'll take that. Of course, they have to be aware as the blue zone presses forward down on towards the south side with a little bit of field in play. The walls is going to come in. Dexter gets a knock, but unfortunately goes down in the process. 4 Romanian men finish a third, left with their final 2. Game Lord didn't suffer any casualties on that, so it's going to be easy for them to push up on towards the members of 7-Up. Keep an eye on the kill feed as Amari hurts them even further. And they punishes, brutalizes them as the final kill goes out, and Game Lord end the day with a chicken dinner.
Game Lord once again finishing the day with the chicken dinner, and I love the aggression out of them. The second for the 4 Romanian member of Dexter tried to do what he could. It wasn't even an intentional third party. He was just trying to get one last knock, one last kill in. Well, Game Lord took advantage of that and pressed super aggressive, and they closed that one out strong. 7-Up, though, I love their rotations throughout the game. They were the team that you called out at the center compound in the field. And the second that circle shifted, they readjusted and did the 2-2 split at the 2 big buildings. You thought they were going to win the game. Well, they got really close. That was a bold prediction that early on by you, but it actually played out really well as they secured a 2nd place finish in terms of placement points.
If I'm not mistaken, the top 2 teams in that game are the 2 teams that land in Yasnaya. Just putting that out there. Normally,
you're right.
That doesn't happen as well. Normally, that doesn't happen because we all know that the play mentality of where you drop is completely different compared to if it's in the same location at the end of the game, right? So to see that happen, just to give props to both of those teams together, playing around those buildings, working out. Game Lord had a bit more of a spread, but they weren't really put under pressure from the eastern side. Teams opted to kind of go for a more south side or kind of northwestern push into the circle, so they were able to benefit more highly for that. And then, as I pointed out during the game, 7-Up's 2-2 split, although they lost 1, it ended up being very successful in their ability to get into the final 2.
Yeah, I think losing 1 member is perfectly fine if it came through in the form of securing more elimination points, right? I would much rather have, more elim points than the chicken dinner, because if you think about it, a chicken dinner is 15 points placement-wise. 2nd place is 12. So that's only a 3-point difference. You could easily cover that by playing a 2-2 split and picking up 4, 5, maybe even 6 elims because you hold more control and territory. So at the end of the day, the overall points are what matters, not so much the chicken dinner. So I think 7-Up did play that quite beautifully, like you mentioned.
Yeah, for sure. Eastern Stars had a good game. A lot of eliminations in that one. I think it was kind of top 5, top 6 in terms of placement points, but they did get a good few eliminations to perk that up. Not quite 4 games all in top 3, but again, for the Romanian sides, first day in this PUBG Mobile European Community Tournament. I know they're a PMDC side, so we should be expecting this. But it's still so good to see them perform like this, right? It puts such a big smile on my face because I know that Kapahala as the IGL is always so calm, always so kind of humbled, and he'll take this kind of tournament overall just as seriously as something like the PMGC.
Yeah, so we are definitely in for a treat. Like, they have so many more matches to be played as well. And this is probably the first time we get to see them for the new year. Yeah. Like, PMGC just wrapped up pretty recently. And so, like, now they're maybe trying out new strategies. They have a new player on the roster. So we get to see from the very early stages how this team might shine, in the future. And who knows, we might see them back in PMGC by the end of the year. But for now, they're putting in the grind, they're putting in the work already, starting this early on in the month of January.
Definitely. Red Moon, I want to highlight one aspect of that game that I was a little bit flustered with. When Showdown when they pushed in onto Glore in that dip, there should have been a lot more of an opportunistic push by Red Moon, because Showdown were, I believe, down to 2 players. They suffered 2 knocks. Red Moon allowed them to get back up as a full squad. In a higher level, competitive level situation, they could easily get punished for that if they allow a team to get back up as a full squad. So that moment, even though Red Moon disengaged off the back of a knock a couple of minutes later, for the sake of picking up essentially at least 2 extra kills and a squad wipe and securing that southern area, and then you could push in, they wasted a bit of time and lost out on eliminations.
Yeah, so going back to VOD footage review for them, I hope they do recognize, hey, if we were a higher caliber team, we still would have had time to do the rotation if we got the aggression in at the right timing with the right synergy. So a lot to be learned from these matches. One thing I've definitely learned, though, watching is that the Eastern Stars, not only are they good, like, positional wise, but, you know, just their gun skill. Like, we saw what they did to that car driving by. They absolutely ripped the 2 players out of the car like it was nothing, like paperweight. It happened so suddenly, too. I mean, I do believe it was at least 2 or 3 members of Eastern Stars shooting, but did you notice that the car wasn't even smoking when those 2 players got ripped out? They did not.
Exactly.
Yeah, they didn't miss too many shots hitting the car. They aimed, the bullets connected straight onto the passengers.
The one caveat I kind of want to throw out there, although it's a speculative caveat, are the teams playing with aim assist on or aim assist off?
Oh, okay.
That's a one speculative. Now, that's not taken away from Badgie's skill, because again, he's played in PMGC where it's hardcore mode, aim assist off. But if aim assist was on for that game, it would have made the accuracy of those shots just a little bit easier. Just a small caveat, not to take it too much away from the high skill around those shots.
I would like to believe, though, like, if you're playing in any type of tournament, even if it's a community tournament, that you have a competitive spirit in the hopes of, you know, one day making into the PMCO, the PMPL, PMGC, and hopefully they turn aim assist off themselves. I'm sure Eastern Stars, they are playing with aim assist off, even in a tournament that does allow it. As for these other teams, right? These other teams, I'm not too familiar with them, but I'd like to believe if you're playing in any tournament, you got that competitive spirit and you want to make your way up to the best. And so you'll play by the rules of how some of the best teams play. And that's with the aim assist off, of course.
You see, the match rankings for this final game of the day, of course, once again, Game Lord and 7 up 24 and 18 points, first and second respectively. But like the last game, I have to highlight the 2 Romanian teams, third and fourth, a total of 31 points together. That's so good, as well as the 2 UK teams, Shadow Gaming and the 100. Okay, it's only 13 points, but you know,
consistency.
2 of them, consistency, right? Just that is so nice to see.
13 points between the 2 of them. We saw last game on Sanhok. They were also, you know, right next to each other in overall points. So a nice balance, you know, coming out from there.
Yeah.
Eastern Stars, by the way, 11 eliminations. So they went out rather early. We were questioning, did they finish top 3? Well, if you count the elim points added up, yeah, they had another top 3 finish overall. So it's not always about the placement points. And I even called it out very early on during that last match. I said, it looks like Eastern Stars for this last game is going to be more focused on getting elims and playing aggressive, as opposed to, you know, the first few games they played more traditionally. And they know how to get points through elims, and they know how to get points through placement points. So a very well-skilled, diverse team right there, and they know how to do it in both different fashions.
You're dead right. I wasn't fully sure about how many eliminations Eastern Stars had in that game. So I was like, look, I'll be safe and I'll kind of undervalue the amount of points they had. But indeed, that's 4 games, all top 3 from Eastern Stars. Teubesk, my friends, Teubesk. But of course, Big still had a good game with a total of 8 points in this one. You know, when you back up how aggressive they were, it was pretty spot on. So you can't really fault them for that. We will be showing you guys the overall community rankings after 2 games of games, so it gives you a bit of an idea coming into tomorrow games. But before that, we are going to go over to the highlights so the graphical team could get it ready, and then we will be back in a couple of minutes for the overall community standings. Don't go away. Welcome back. Thank you so much for waiting, as we have everything calculated so we can show you the overall rankings, myself and Zute, before we close out the day. Give everyone a bit of an idea of how the communities are looking after day 2. France, they hold on to the top spot, but it's a hell of a lot closer.
Yeah, hell of a lot closer, and the biggest thing that stands out for me is Romania. Just shooting their way up to 4th place overall. So it's not like even they had a bad day. On the very first day, we only had 1 Romanian team playing. Now they finally have 2 playing for today, and they're already 4th overall, so looking extremely good and on the path to maybe take over 1st place too.
Yeah, it's incredibly impressive coming out from Romania and what they've been able to do, but I have to give a shout out to the Nordic countries. 129 points in 3rd place. You can't really fault that at all, like at all.
Yeah, I actually really love looking at the community scores. Like, it's not just one team, it's a total of 8 players, 2 teams working together almost. So, and you get to represent not just your team but your community, right? And I know some of these regions are struggling, like towards the end of, you know, the leaderboards, but at the end of the day, it's like these teams are all trying their best, doing what they can to improve, and that's basically the heart of competitive. And it's great to see everybody, you know, out there practicing and improving, and we get to commentate and bring that entertainment to you all.
And one thing to consider though, for France, as they hold on currently to the top spot, and Germany in 2nd place, compared to both the Nordic countries community and the Romanian community, they have 4 extra games in hand. The Nordic countries team and the Romanian communities team, they've both played 4 games less, because in yesterday's games we were missing actually no, my apologies. No. So in today's games, YMCA was missing, one of the Nordic side, and in yesterday's games, Eastern Stars was missing, one of the Romanian sides. Whereas both the French teams and both the German teams have played all 8 games so far.
Yeah, so you're absolutely right. Some teams came in today, and that also means some teams had to sit out. So it's a little bit difficult to track as the days continue, but at the end of the tournament, all teams will have participated, and all communities in total will have participated the same amount of games. But it's quite evident to say Romania, you know, they're looking strong to catch up to 1st, and also the Nordic countries.
Yeah, exactly. And once again, a big shout out to the UK communities. I know it was a little bit of a poor performance for the 100, but to see the rise in Showdown, I think is a big thing. I know they dropped technically 2 places from where they were after yesterday's 4 games, but I still recognize the potential that both teams have to, in the end, possibly be in the top 3 as a community. So I see what you're trying to pull off, UK.
And keep in mind, the prize is shared between the 2 teams. That's why we have such an emphasis on the community. When a community gets a placement like 1st place or 2nd place overall, that prize is split between the 2 teams.
Yes.
So it is quite, the team effort, and it's great to see this new format, right?
For sure.
It ushers in kind of a new, community pride. You carry not just your team pride, but your community pride. So it's really cool.
It is indeed. Well, we won't waste your evening any longer, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's PUBG Mobile Europe Community Tournament. We're going to be back tomorrow, same time, same place, 6 p.m. CET. Join us. It's going to be a hell of a lot of fun for 4 more games. Take care. Bye-bye.